a humbling reminder that while a lot of us think that we know a lot of things, myself included, we really don't know much about what goes on behind closed doors in Ashburn. It's the Kevin Sheehan Show. Denton Day sitting in for Kevin here on a Thursday. Booger McFarland, ESPN, is going to be with us in about 15 minutes. Get his thoughts on the Commanders, plus a little bit of college football coming up this weekend as well that we will get his thoughts on. I was listening to both press conferences that took place yesterday. You had Dan Quinn and Adam Peters, and then Terry McLaurin after practice. You will hear a significant amount of both of those throughout the course of today's show. Dan Quinn will speak at noon. You'll hear that as well. But I was listening to these press conferences. There was a whole lot that was going on that we had no knowledge of. It felt like now more than ever through this entire process, especially towards the end of the process, we were starting to get more and more information that felt like we kind of understood the direction that the sides were going. And look, I knew ultimately a deal was going to get done in some way, shape, or form. I think most of you probably felt the same way. A deal with Terry and the Commanders was going to get done in some way, shape, or form. But it really felt like that Adam Peters was in control of this entire thing, Max. And as much as we kind of ragged on Terry's agent, Buddy Baker, maybe he was not out of his depth as much as we thought he was out of his depth. This is just the process that seems to take place when you are negotiating a big contract with a big-time player. Now, maybe there was some lying yesterday. In fact, I would go so far as to say there was definitely a little bit of stretching of the truth in some capacity, particularly with something Terry said about his ankle, which you will hear. That might have been one of my favorite moments of the press conference.
I laughed out loud when Ben asked that question.
I mean, shout out to Ben Standing. It was a great question. You know what? Why I'm not going to bury the lead. I'm going to be a great journalist here, Max. People call me a journalist. I'm not a journalist, but I'm going to be a great journalist here. Ben asked Terry McLaurin about his ankle situation as Terry is in his ramp up to get ready for the season. Listen to what Terry said about the ankle injury that has been keeping him on the physically unable to perform list for this entire offseason.
Yeah, I'll just keep that between me and the front office and the training staff. But I will say, like, they did a great job of taking care of me, making sure I was right, being back on this field with this ramp up process. And, I'm just going to continue to build from there and just happy to be back on the grass. So it was a great ramp up process for me to be back out here. I feel great when I'm running out there. And so the strength staff, the training staff, and, DQ and everybody was supportive of me and allowing me to get back, to this level where I'm able to hit the ground running. That's what it's all about.
There's a great order that he put these things in.
I mean, look, man, I've never had an $87 million Band-Aid, but I bet there's not a lot of injuries that I could sustain where that wouldn't heal me. Yeah. So I get where he's coming from, man. Most of the Band-Aids that I buy are like $4, and you get 20 for $4. Or now in this economy, it's like $7, and you get 20 or 50. An $87 million Band-Aid that could potentially be worth $96 million over the course of 3 years would definitely make that ankle feeling real good. The ligaments would be great. They'd be loose. They'd be able to flex. I'd be able to run really fast. I promise you that. I like that he was at least, he didn't hide it. He tried to kind of step it, dodge it. He should have just said he rolled it doing something. The thing in this entire process that I think Terry really could have taken a little bit more advantage of, he was actually here at one point. During the offseason, I know he skipped the mandatory stuff and he skipped some of the non-mandatory stuff, but only some of the non-mandatory stuff. Like, there very much was a part, and the team posted a picture of it all the way back in, I don't know if it was March or April or something, but he was catching passes from Jane Daniels. I remember there was this big smile on his face. I think he had a bucket hat on or something. So he very much was here. I would have leaned a little bit more into that to be like, I was just aggravated doing some stuff. Hey, one of the reasons I wasn't here for the mandatory stuff was because I actually, did have the ankle situation. I would have really pressed hard instead of I'm going to keep that between me and the front office, as in no, you were actually on the physically unable to perform list. They did say that you had some sort of injuries. So I think Terry should have done just a little bit of a better job there. He was honest, though, in most other cases. And he did mention something about the trade request, which was unprompted. he got asked a lot of questions. Nobody specifically asked him about the trade request, but he did mention the trade request. So this is Terry. He was asked about something different, and then it led to him speaking of the trade request and kind of how that came to be and how it was real.
I think it's clip 6. I'm not 100% sure.
I think it's clip 6. So give me clip 6.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, when you get to a point where you're here for a little over, I kind of lost track of the days, but you're here for a little while and you're not out on the practice field, and things may not progress what you would like for them to progress. And again, like, I don't think everybody's situation is unique and different. So I never tried to look at this person's situation as like, this is how I handle it. I just tried to stay true to myself, but also have the open conversations that were afforded to me, both with my agent Buddy. Buddy was having great conversations with Adam. Adam gave me the opportunity to have multiple conversations with him, DQ as well. So it was just a matter of getting on the same page. I appreciate them hearing me out and being able to express what my worth is and what I bring to the table on the field and off the field as a teammate and all those things. And, in the end, they feel the exact same way. And so to be in a position where you feel like you can advocate for yourself, be educated throughout this process was something that I took day by day to try to help get to this result. So there was definitely some unknowns. Obviously, the trade request was, something that I did. And, full transparency, I told the front office this as well. Like, that wasn't something that I was doing for just like a leverage point or just to do it or let me call some hoopla. Like, I try to be as intentional as possible. Am I perfect? No, I'm not. Are there some things that, you think about that you maybe want to handle different or do better? Sure, that's any situation. But the most important part is the communication that was very important throughout this process from start to finish. The way it ended was better than it started. So that's what it's all about. And there's a deal in place now that keeps me here that I'm extremely happy about. The front office and the coaching staff is extremely happy about. My teammates are happy about. This fan base is happy about. So that's a win-win when you look at a deal, to be honest. So everybody wins, in my opinion. And, I'm just really looking forward to continue to build my career here and hopefully leave a lasting legacy as a player, but as a teammate, as a person, and have a chance to win championships and just continue to pour into this community and this fan base, because I do love this place with all my heart, but there's also a business component and I can never lose sight of that. But there was a lot of things that also allowed me to keep perspective. And like I said, my teammates were great with that. My wife, my family, my friends. So you got to try to keep perspective in some of these tough situations. And so, yeah, there were some times where I was like, I don't know, you know what I mean? But I was never going to jump to one extreme to the other. It wasn't like, I'm gonna be here or I'm not, like, I just really prayed every single day that the Lord ordained my steps and continue to speak to me. And I knew I would end up where I was supposed to be. So I'm definitely here and I'm happy about it.
That was the only time in the entire press availability that the trade request was mentioned. And it was Terry mentioning it himself. And he kind of said, like, hey, that was real. That was not just a leverage point like a majority of us thought it was. I still kind of do think it was a leverage point. I don't think that Terry ever believed he was going to get traded. I don't think his agent ever believed that he was going to get traded. And I don't believe that Adam Peters had any intention of ever trading or shopping Terry in any capacity. But he said that very much was real. But that was the only time it was referred to at all during that press availability. His answers are very, very long, as you heard. I mean, that was like a 3-minute answer. So he was very open and transparent with a lot of these things. The general focus, though, Max, was that Terry very much wants to be here. And the general focus from listening to Adam Peters is that they very much wanted Terry to be here. There are not a lot of players on the Commanders football team Redskins over the past 20 years that have ever gotten a third contract here. And when I say a third contract, I mean like a real legitimate third contract. There have been some guys, I think Tress Way is on contract number 4, but with all due respect to Tress, he's fantastic at what he does. It's very different negotiating with a punter than it is negotiating with a wide receiver number 1 or someone that is that in the top 10 at their particular position in any capacity, right? Trez has been there certainly for a number of years, but it's just a very different process to negotiate with a guy like Terry versus a guy like Trez. There just have not been a lot of third contracts. Like even Ryan Kerrigan, who was here for what felt like an eternity, he never got a third contract here. He played the rookie deal out, which was about 4 years, and then he signed a 5-year extension that took him to 2020, and then he did that weird little bit where he played for the Eagles for a season. Remember that? We don't talk about that one a lot. But Ryan Kerrigan, who felt like he was here for forever, never got a third contract here. You know, Trent Williams, I need to look this up to see what Trent's actual extension points were here in Washington, because it feels like with Trent in San Francisco, he's gotten 1,000 contracts just because they constantly repay him. It feels like every single other year. But if you look at Trent in Washington, you know, he didn't sign a third. He played that rookie deal. He played that rookie extension, which again was a 5-year contract. He never got a third contract here. So Terry is the first guy that is really at the top of his position, in a position that is incredibly pertinent with some of these deals, that has gotten a third contract. And that's largely, it felt like when, this is like a little bit of a history here. It felt like when Michael Thomas in New Orleans signed that massive contract all those years ago, NFL teams across the board, because I think Michael Thomas signed like a 5-year, 6-year extension when he had just had that crazy season in New Orleans. When that extension was signed, a majority of teams across the NFL and a majority of players were like, we're not going to jump into 5-year deals when we can get 3-year deals and then re-up. And Terry was obviously, he's kind of like the poster child for that here. He signed a 3-year deal in the Ron Rivera era, understanding that eventually he'd be able to get to re-up. And he kind of played it perfectly. Like, this is a really good deal for Terry. Did he get the $35 million that he allegedly was asking for at the beginning? No, but he got everything that he wanted, or at least everything he said that he wanted. It's just a very unique position to be in, because third contracts in the NFL really are not as frequent as it sometimes seems, especially here. I just found that to be really, really interesting. And I'm curious as to how that might have impacted the process. And what I need to do, Max, is kind of look back at the 49ers and see how many third contracts that they negotiated, and some of the other places that Adam Peters stopped in. There's just not a lot of big third contracts that are being negotiated across the NFL. But the simple fact is, Terry is here. And he is here for a very, very long time. In about an hour, I'm going to tell you exactly how much money he could be making in the year 2025. It'll actually blow your mind. But coming up next, we're going to ESPN. Booger McFarland of ESPN. He's going to jump on with us, get his thoughts on the Commanders and a little bit of college football. Week 1 starts today in the world of college football. Booger McFarland next. It's a Kevin Sheehan Show with Dente sitting in. It is the Kevin Sheehan Show. Denton Day sitting in for Kevin here on the Team 980. The Terry contract is official. It is on to New York for Washington. Joining us to help preview this season for the Commanders and a little bit of college football. We got some college football starting today. Booger McFarland, ESPN, with us here on the Kevin Sheehan Show with Denton Day sitting in. Boog, first and foremost, man, appreciate you jumping on and making some time for us. Your reaction on Monday when the Terry McLaurin contract was official and he was staying in Washington?
Well, I think it was just like everybody else, man. It's kind of about time. I think that with all the good juju that's been going on with Washington since the new ownership and, Dan Snyder's out of the way and Jaden Daniels had a tremendous season. Everything's been positive. And this is kind of the one negative little something that popped up. And I think everybody kind of figured it would be taken care of, but the longer it drug out, you didn't know. And I get it. I understand both sides, receiver, 30 years old, blah, blah, blah. But I think that's where you have to use, kind of get away from those formulas and use some human nature, and just say, okay, look at what Terry has kind of meant to this franchise. Look at what he's done. Look at what he meant to Jaden Daniels. Look at his leadership qualities. And like when you add all those things in, I think he got what he deserved. And, now he's got to go out and produce to that level, which I don't have any doubt that he will. But long way of saying, man, I think everybody around the league is happy about this deal. And I think it's been received very well.
Do you believe that Terry is a top 10 receiver in this league?
I think the numbers say it. I think when you look at how he plays, yeah, absolutely. Like he may not be 1 to 4, but you could probably. There's no doubt you're going to put him somewhere between 4 and 10, depending on your flavor, what you like. No doubt about it.
So with that said, then you get Terry obviously coming to play with Jaden. They bring in Deebo Samuel. What do you think this offense can look like after a successful year last year with these two guys?
Well, that's going to depend on how they run the football. Like if you just understand what Dan Quinn wants to do and how they want to play, we make a lot about Jaden Daniels, and rightfully so. But he can't do it all. Like right. I don't think you want to get into a situation where this quarterback is throwing it 35 times and then running it 20. So where do you find the touches to go elsewhere? I understand everybody likes the young backs that you guys got up there. You trade away Brian Robinson because maybe he doesn't fit the scheme. He's more of a pounder than he is kind of a slasher, which is what this offense needs. I think Deebo coming over is going to be able to take some touches. He's going to be an extension of the run game, jet sweeps, quick screens. You just want to get the ball in Deebo's hands in the perimeter in space. He can make people miss. He's a tough tackle. Ultimately, this team, I think, though, is going to come down to how they play defense. Who's going to rush the passer? Can you stop the run consistently? And when you get a lead, again, can you go get the quarterback? I think health is going to be very paramount on this team because you can't get Terry hurt. You can't get, some of your top guys on the defensive side of the football hurt because I don't think the depth is there just yet. But overall, I think if health withstanding, I think people expect the team to be better. Now, that doesn't mean that the record is going to be better,
right?
But I do think people expect the team to be better.
Booger McFarland, ESPN, with us here on the Kevin Sheehan Show with Denton Day sitting in for Kevin on the Team 980. So you mentioned the defense needing to be better. The run defense was obviously a huge Achilles heel for this team last year. How easy is it to go from a bad run defense one year to a good run defense the next year?
It's all mindset, man. That's what it is. Like once you understand, like playing run defense is simple math. Okay, if they have 7 guys to block, we need 8 guys in the run fit. 7 to take on the blockers, 1 to make the tackle. Just, if we just keep it on the surface. The scheme is good. Dan is a great defensive coach. I know the scheme is good. I know everything like that. But now it comes down to mindset, man. Like football, I know we've made football soft with all these new rules and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, man, you got to hit people in the mouth. You got to be willing to be physical. And I think understanding what DQ is all about, I think now it comes down to this system, how do you play it, and do you have guys that are tough enough? And I have no doubt, based on what we saw last year, now you go into the offseason, you figured out, you change personnel a little bit, I think they're going to be better.
How good do you think a guy like Javon Kinlaw can be, being that guy that's big, that's tough, and will hit you in the mouth?
He's big, he's athletic. I still don't think he's been unlocked yet. Coming out of South Carolina, man, like he is a man-child. Sometimes you need a new system. Sometimes you need somebody in the ear to just to kind of bring the best out of you, man. I've been traded. I've left one team and went to another. I do think that can help, a different atmosphere. I think the positive momentum, man, and this is the thing that beyond everything else, I think Washington has going for it. I think inside that locker room, Dan is one of the best culture builders in football. And what does that mean? Because we throw that around often. What is culture? Culture is like, what's the mood, the vibe when you walk in the locker room, when the coaches are not around? Is everybody talking ball? Are we feeling ball? Are the guys getting along? Do we understand what we're trying to do? Coaches don't have to do a whole lot. They just have to tell us what to do and we get it done. Like there is a togetherness and brotherhood. And I think they have that in Washington. And I think that's the best thing. So last year gave them a little taste of what it could be. I do think some of the personnel moves that they've made are going to help them. But all that being said, you know, when toe meets leather, man, in about 9 days, I think Washington is going to score plenty of points. It's going to come down to me when quarterback drops back on the opposing team. Can you go get them? You got to be able to affect the other quarterback to win in this league. And because at some point it's going to turn into a passing game. It's a passing league. And I think their ability to affect the opposing quarterback, whether that's sacks or pressure, will ultimately dictate the record. Jaden Daniels will be outstanding. I think he'll be great. His poise, his patience, his maturity, I've seen it since LSU. It hasn't changed. It's only gotten better. I have no doubt it's going to be better this year. But he can't score and then stop people. So I think the defense is going to be the biggest factor in determining where this team goes. Because a lot of people are thinking Super Bowl. Right. I'm not there yet until I see where this defense is at.
Bobby Wagner is going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. When you watch him, what jumps out on the screen?
You know, we often talk about quarterbacks and how they see the field and how those guys understand the game and how the game slows down. You can say the same for a middle linebacker. Like he is at middle linebacker what some of the great quarterbacks have been. Maybe not in the standpoint of scoring touchdowns and all that, but when you think about how Peyton Manning quarterbacked our offense in Indianapolis, when you think about what Tom Brady did in New England, orchestrating things, like that's what Bobby does. And we don't give him the credit. That's our fault because defense is kind of second fiddle in our mind. Everybody wants to score points, but he is as good as there have ever been at the middle linebacker position. He's smart. He's athletic. What he's lost maybe as far as the athletic ability, he makes up for in understanding. He's been durable. He's played a long time. And I think the thing when I talked about the culture earlier, he's a culture builder. Like he understands what culture is about. He understands what winning is about. He's won a Super Bowl before. Like he's been on great defenses. He knows what it looks like. And when you have a young team, and by and large, everybody in the NFL has a young team because the league is younger, you need that veteran or two on your team. And I'm glad DQ has Bobby because it's a lot of young guys on that team, a lot of guys 22 to 26 on that team. And they think they know it all, and I promise you they don't. You need a veteran that's 32, 33, 34, that's been in the wars, that can tell the 25-year-old, hey, guy, I know you think you're made it, but we ain't done nothing yet. And that makes far more of an impact coming from Bobby than it would coming from any coach on the staff.
Talking with Booger McFarland, ESPN. Boog, just a few more for you here as we get set for week one and a little bit of college football as well I want your take on. But you mentioned guys like Peyton Manning and Tom Brady and some of their competitiveness and kind of the way they handle things at the line of scrimmage. Do you see little inklings of those sorts of things in Jaden Daniels?
Yeah, well, it's early, man. Like his poise, like the one thing people continue to talk about him, like he doesn't get flustered. Like that's what the great ones have. Like if you look at Cam Ward this year, the one thing we said when we were at the draft and myself and Mel and Lewis were talking, like his poise, he doesn't get sped up. And that's the hardest thing for a young quarterback to kind of grasp on, is just to be patient. And Jaden has that. He had it at LSU. And I think you can attribute that to all the football he's played. He's played a ton of ball and he's made a ton of starts. He's seen a lot. Like he's been in Death Valley when Alabama came in there. Like he's beaten them. Like he's been in the most hostile environments that football has to offer, and he hasn't blinked. And I think that's prepared him to where he is now. Like there's no stadium he's going to walk in that's going to be like it was in Baton Rouge on a Saturday night when Alabama was on the other side. I'm sorry, NFL, there's no atmosphere that's going to be like that because the college game is just a little bit different from the crowd standpoint. NFL is more of a corporate crowd, unless you're in Green Bay or Kansas City. But to my point, he has been in environments that are way hotter than what he sees every Sunday. And so there's no doubt his poise is off the charts. And I think you're going to continue to see that and see how patient he is and just see how, we often say the game slows down. What does that mean? That means that the quarterback sees things so much faster. Obviously, the game doesn't slow down. He just sees things faster because his mind is processing it faster. And then you can attribute that to some of the things or some of the players that you mentioned, because that's how Manning was. That's how Brady was. And those guys had to do it because they were slower than molasses. He doesn't have to do it because he's a great athlete. So now you got the best of both worlds.
I mean, Burrow has that same thing. Is it something in the water at LSU that has these guys ready to play and kind of process at an NFL level as soon as they jump into the league?
I just think they've played a lot of football, man. Burrow transferred from Ohio State. Jaden from Arizona State. They played a lot of football. Like, they've been around. They've seen a lot. Experience is the best teacher in life, guys. I don't know if you've heard that before, but it is. You can go in any classroom in America. The only thing that's really going to help you with this thing called life and football is to practice and to experience it and to keep living it. And both of those guys that you mentioned have done that.
A few college football questions here for you, Boog. So I texted Jacob Hester about this when I saw this, but I'd like to get your take. How big of a deal is it that Garrett Nussmeier is wearing 18?
Well, it's a huge deal personally for him because, 18 is a leadership award. It's a situation or it's an achievement that a lot of people want. It just lets you know how your peers on that team feel about you, how the coaching staff feels about you. And it's one of those things that you would be put in a select group forever. And so it's a huge deal when the guy that touches the ball every single play is viewed as the leader of the team.
Who do you like this weekend between Clemson and LSU?
Well, of course, you know who I like. It's not even a question. I think the game comes down to LSU's ability to play defense at a high level, which we haven't always done. And then on the other side of the football, how does the LSU offensive line deal with maybe the best defensive line in America? I think those two factors determine the game.
So I was informed of this. I'll get you out of here on this, Boog. I was informed of this prior to having you on, that you have to now eat 12 donuts because of a bet that you made with Big Cat at Barstool. Do you have a game plan for how you're going to eat 12 donuts in one sitting? Does it have to be a certain amount of donuts? Can you fill us in on any details there?
Well, it just depends. If they're Krispy Kreme donuts, that's easy. I could eat 2 dozen. That's not a problem. It just depends on what kind of donuts they are. I'm not a big topping. I don't need Boston cream fill. I don't need a bunch. I just need plain glazed donuts. Plain glazed donuts is not going to be an issue at all.
Boog, appreciate the time, my friend. Hope to do this again soon.
All good, man. Anytime.
That is Booger McFarland at ESPN. Some really good stuff in there from Boog, specifically about the run defense. And, Max, in listening to Adam Peters speak yesterday, he made a comment about how this roster on paper is better than it was in 2024. And by and large, every coach, every general manager, except for maybe the guys that run the New Orleans Saints this year, they're all going to tell you, hey, we're a little bit better than we were on paper last year in some capacity. But for Washington, I do feel like it's different because you now are competing for a championship. And it's the first time in a long time where you have a good opportunity to not just get to the playoffs, but make a deep run for a championship. And that's largely based because of Jaden Daniels. But the run defense was a massive, massive issue for this team last year. And how they can improve that run defense, I don't get worried a lot about stuff in the preseason, but it was very apparent that in the preseason, based off of what they were doing, and they didn't play a lot of their number ones, but they did play guys that are going to get, significant snaps. Johnny Newton's a good example of this. Javon Kinlaw played a little bit. Duran. You saw some guys that are going to get significant snaps, and there still was an issue when it came to stopping the run. I'm really hoping that Javon Kinlaw, whatever Adam Peters sees in him on the field, on the grass has become like the motto for this team this offseason. Cliff Kingsbury must say that in the building all of the time because everybody says on the grass. Whatever Adam Peters is thinking that he's going to get from Javon Kinlaw on the grass, it needs to happen. This team cannot get to the place where we all want them to get to if their run defense is still piss poor. Now, Javon Kinlaw has had a really good training camp. If you have seen him, if you've been out there at training camp, I'm sure you have seen him. I've gotten the opportunity to stand on the field when Javon Kinlaw is on the field and coming off the field. He is massive. He's probably the largest human being, or one of the largest human beings that I've ever seen in person. He's literally like Goliath when he's walking on the field. But you need to play well during the actual games. No one has won a game in the history of the NFL just by looking the part. You got to actually get out there and bust somebody's ass. As Booger McFarland said, hit somebody in the mouth. It is very much mental when it comes to the defensive line and stopping the run. And I really hope that this offseason they have honed in on the mental element of it. So when we get the ones out there for real in games that matter, when they're actually running real defense and when they're going up against teams that are running some sort of real offense. A lot of the stuff that we saw in the preseason, whether it was New England, Cincinnati, or Baltimore towards the end, it was pretty basic run concepts. No one is showcasing too much of their hand in the preseason. Maybe in the joint practices or joint practice singular, because they did not get one with Baltimore. Maybe in the joint practice with New England, you saw a little bit more complexities that will get you ready to go up against an actual running attack. But defensively, you have to stop the run. You're going to play too many good running backs this year. And theoretically, if you get to the postseason, or theoretically, when you get to the postseason, you're going to see a bunch of teams with really good running backs. And if you make the offenses and the quarterback's life easier because they can run the football on you, you're going to be put in a tough spot. We saw that last year. I mean, Saquon Barkley, NFC Championship game, first carry, 60-yard touchdown. And you're just like, this is going to suck. This is not going to be fun for the rest of it. Washington had its opportunities, certainly, but this is not going to be fun for the rest of the way if they cannot stop Saquon Barkley. And then Philadelphia ended up putting 55 points up. Part of that is because Washington turned the ball over like crazy, and they just were giving them short field after short field after short field, which the only thing worse than a bad run defense is a bad run defense on a short field. And that's kind of what the NFC Championship game ended up looking like. But this is where I'm going to throw the question out to you. 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. Adam Peters says that this team is better on paper in 2025 than 2024. Have they closed the gap with Philadelphia? We now see the 53-man roster. We know who's going to be a part of this team. Has Washington closed the gap with Philadelphia? 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. We take your phone calls next. It's the Kevin Sheehan Show with Dende sitting in for Kevin on the Team 980. It's the Kevin Sheehan Show on the Team 980. We're also streaming on YouTube. You can see I trimmed my beard for this. So everybody go watch me on YouTube. Dent Day sitting in for Kevin. We just had Booger McFarland on. It was a great conversation. You can catch it if you missed it on the YouTube, or you can go and get it on the podcast when it's available, wherever it is that you get your podcast. Rate and review us on Apple and Spotify. It's incredibly helpful. Thank you in advance. So Booger McFarland was talking about the defense, how the defense needs to get better. Yesterday, Adam Peters was at the podium for the first time since the beginning of the offseason, the beginning of training camp. He usually does this. Most GMs do after the final 53. Now, there was a lot of questions about Terry McLaurin, but there were some questions about the final 53 and what this roster looks like as the focus now turns from training camp and Terry and all these things to the Giants in week 1, and then ultimately pursuing the goal of playing at least one more game than the team played last year and getting to the Super Bowl, a place this team hasn't been in what is approaching, 35, 40 years now. So here's what Adam Peters said that I found to be really interesting, not stunning, but interesting about the overall way that he views this roster in 2025.
The depth, I think the depth is better, up front on both sides, and just bringing in some guys who are really complementary through free agency, through the draft, that really fit in what we're doing. So just the identity of the team overall, without having to single out anybody, just the overall identity and competitiveness that every player has on this team, and really kind of fits in what we're looking for.
So that's Adam Peters on the roster and the identity of the roster as we head into 2025. He also said yesterday that he feels like on paper this roster is a lot better in 2025 than it is in 2024. And on the surface, I would agree with that, particularly on offense. When you add a guy like Laramie Tunsil, your offensive line does not get worse. When you add a guy like Deebo Samuel, your receiving group does not get worse. Because whatever you feel about Deebo, who has become a little bit of a polarizing figure across the NFL in the past couple of years, it feels like there are some people that think he's completely and utterly washed. And there's some people that think he's like the best thing since sliced bread. I am kind of in the middle, but I think Deebo is a massive upgrade at wide receiver 2 from even a guy like Noah Brown, but from anybody else that was on the roster last year. Deebo is a massive upgrade. And if he stays healthy, this offense has another gear that it can get to that it could not get to in 2024. And I say that knowing that 2024 was one of the better offenses across the entire NFL. So on that side of the ball, certainly the offense has gotten better. They move on from Brian Robinson, but they move on from Brian Robinson because there's clearly some guys in that running back room that they really like. And on top of that, I just think they were kind of done with Brian Robinson, and what they wanted out of their running game was not something he provided. The biggest question is on the defense, and that's really where all of this is going to lie. So when we take your phone calls here in a couple of minutes at 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980, and I ask you, have they closed the gap with Philadelphia? Philadelphia, not just in the division, but Philadelphia in the conference. If you want to get to the place where you're playing one more game than you did in 2024, you know that you are going to have to go through Philadelphia in some way, shape, or form. Have they closed the gap with Philadelphia? That entirely relies on either Javon Kinlaw or Johnny Newton taking a massive step forward, or Daron Payne just being better. Daron Payne statistically has not been anywhere near the player that earned the contract, because that contract year was a crazy year. He was awesome that year. He has not been that player since he got his contract. Can he get better when it comes to filling gaps, beating double teams if double teams come, and just stopping the run, stopping 7-yard runs? Even if you take a 7-yard run and make it a 3-yard run, it makes it a lot easier on your defense. Everybody needs to get better. I think the depth in the defensive backfield has improved tenfold. If you look at where this team was this time last year, going into the season with Benjamin St-Juste, Emmanuel Forbes, Michael Davis, and a then unproven rookie Mikey Sainristil as their corners, to now a healthy Marshawn Lattimore, Trey Amos, who is really, really good and they really, really like, Mikey Sainristil, who we now know what Mikey Sainristil is as a player, which is a really, really good player who could potentially make the jump to be a great player, Jonathan Jones and Noah I. That defensive backfield is significantly better. And Quan Martin has 2 functioning shoulders, which he did not have at the end of last year. That position group got better. It is the defensive line, though, that's going to hold this team back or propel them forward to get to the position they want to get to. So I ask you, has Washington closed the gap with Philadelphia in 2025? 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. Let's start with Bay in D.C. Bay, you're on the Team 980. What's going on?
What's going on, Dick? Man, thanks for taking my call, man. I think on paper, we look great. I think playing against Philly, we got to be mental, man. We couldn't stop the run, and when we couldn't stop the run, everything got out of control, man. So, and then those fumbles, man, that really hurt us too. So, I think it's more mental than anything with us, and we just got to be more focused, and we got to be prepared to, like Booger said, punch them in the mouth off the break.
I agree with you, but I think it's a great call. There needs to be a ferocity on the defense and on the defensive line to where you expect to win and then you go out there and win matchups. And you understand with Philadelphia, they're going to punch you in the mouth, and you got to be ready for that and then punch them right back in the mouth. Even with teams like New York and Dallas, just inside the division. I mean, the New York game, that's second New York game. This running back that most of us had never heard of had over 100 yards in the first quarter. And I remember I'm doing the Burgundy Gold Game Day Live with Linnell. And as you can imagine, Linnell's very animated. I look over at Linnell during one of our commercials. We kind of planned it to where our commercial was on when the game was going on. And I look over at him and I'm just like, dude, what is happening right now? And there's some expletives that were shared between the two of us that I can't say on air. But we are not thrilled with what we are seeing from the run defense. You can't have that happen. You can't. You have to be able to stop the run, or not even stop it. Like, I don't think you're going to all of a sudden become like the 2013 Seahawks or like the Jacksonville Jaguars, Denver Broncos, like all of these great teams that we have seen play the run. I don't even expect you to do that. I don't think there's a world where Washington is going to hold teams to like 60 yards on the ground per game. But you just got to make sure you're not allowing 120 yards. Like, you got to split the difference. We spent this entire offseason talking about negotiations, right, between Terry and the team. And the team started on one side of the negotiation. Terry's team started on the other, and they had to split the difference to come together. Well, defensively in the run game, you got to split the difference. If you were allowing 100 and whatever yards last year, you got to come a lot closer to 60. You're not going to get there fully to 60, but you got to come a lot closer. I can't be watching Saquon Barkley hit homers against this team. I mean, he had like 7 touchdowns in 3 games last year against this team. Bijan Robinson, who's a great player, he was torching this team. The Lions, for whatever reason, Ben Johnson, wonder kid over here, decided to stop giving the ball to Jahmyr Gibbs in that divisional game. I thank God that he decided to do that, and I like that the fact that he threw it with Jamison Williams. Like, thank you, Ben Johnson, for that. I really appreciate that. But you cannot allow the stupidity of the offensive coordinator on the other side to save you. You got to go save yourself, and you save yourself by punching some people in the mouth and holding 7-yard gains to 3-yard gains to 2-yard gains, not allowing home runs. I don't want to see a 60-yard run against this defense at all. Never. Please, can I subscribe to that package? I don't want to see anybody break one against them. So the guys that they brought in, your Javon Kinlaws in particular, if they're going to pay Javon Kinlaw the money that they did, and seemingly like flippantly, nobody else was going to give him $15 million per year. If you're going to give him $15 million per year, he damn sure better be worth the $15 million per year. And don't come at me with semantics. Well, it's really a 2-year deal then. And I don't care about all that. If you're going to give him that contract and say, you are going to be our guy, there's going to make a massive difference. I'm not going to call him a savior, but a massive difference in stopping the run. He damn sure better stop the run. 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. Has Washington closed the gap between themselves and Philadelphia? Joe is in Springfield. Joe, what's going on?
Hey, Dan, how you doing?
I'm doing well, man.
So, on paper, I would say yes. However, I'm still concerned about our defensive line. Are they going to be able to stop Saquon Barkley, who always seems to be ripping off these long runs? And like you said, that stat that you just gave is alarming. 7 touchdowns in 3 games against us. But at the same time, if you take, the second game we played them that we won, the fact that it's still mind-boggling. We had 5 turnovers on offense and still put up 36 points on that Eagle defense. And then in the NFC Championship game, the turnovers killed us. Would that have made a difference if the turnovers didn't happen? Probably not, because Saquon was basically having another field day against us. But this year, we are improved, especially on the quarterback situation. The defensive line, then I got to be honest with you. I love Deron Payne, but for me, he's on the hot seat this year. Either he doesn't do it here or he's going to have to find other place to go. I mean, and I feel bad because I know Deron is, he's always been a team player kind of guy, but ever since he got that contract extension, you don't hear from him making anything big anymore. So to me, Deron's on the hot seat. That defensive line is still suspect, but right now, I mean, offense I'm not concerned about. And the thing is, with that running game, I mean, that's what's the crazy thing about it is that 12-5 last year, NFC Championship appearance, that was awesome. But you had no running game, and the defense was terrible. And we still went to the NFC Championship game. You can't rely all on Jaden Daniels. So it has to have a good running game and a good defense. So I know you got more calls later, so take care.
I appreciate it, Joe. They did have a run game, but I get what you're saying, Joe. Jaden was the run game, and you need to have running backs be the run game. So I actually shortchanged the team, Max. I said that they were allowing 120 yards. That was a number that I pulled because I was like, well, surely it's not going to be massively higher than that.
Well,
it's not massively higher than that, but it is higher. They were allowing 137.5 rushing yards per game. That cannot happen in 2025. And you expect this team to be successful. Now, like, duh, I'm not reinventing the wheel here. Like, a round of applause for me. Stop the run. I know. You're like really just big brain thinking over here by me. But you have to get that number down to as close to 100 yards per game as possible. Because if you're constantly allowing other teams to dictate the line of scrimmage, you are going to be lost. Jaden Daniels can play Superman. I would really prefer to not make him do it. He can. I've seen him do it. He did it at times last year. He did it a ton at LSU when he won the Heisman Trophy. But it is important to note, when he won the Heisman Trophy at LSU, they did not make the college football playoff. It was a 14-team playoff, not a 12-team playoff. I think they would have gotten in if it was a 12-team playoff. I think they were ranked like 11th to close the season. Whatever. But he didn't make it in the playoff because they kept losing football games with a bad defense. The objective should not be to make him feel at home here in D.C. by saying, hey, that thing that you had in LSU where you had to do everything and the defense sucked, welcome to D.C. It's going to be the same thing. Cannot happen. The run defense has to be better. You have to take advantage of opportunities on that side. And like, you're playing better quarterbacks this year, Washington is, which is to an extent exciting. Like, anytime you get a matchup with Patrick Mahomes, as a football fan, you should be excited. You know, Jordan Love is a matchup that I'm excited about because there have been some people nationally that say Jordan Love is the best quarterback in the NFC. I know that's not true because our guy is the best quarterback in the NFC, but you get the opportunity to prove it. Short week. I don't love that it's a Thursday night. I don't think that Thursday night football games should exist in the first 3 weeks of the season, but Roger Goodell did not ask me. You're playing Justin Herbert. You want to talk about a team that's going to run the football. The Chargers and Jim Harbaugh are going to run the football. When I look up and down this schedule, there are not a lot of teams that really strike fear in me. You know, Philadelphia I know is going to be tough. I don't know that they strike fear in me. You know, Kansas City with Mahomes is going to be more fun, I think, than it is tough. Detroit, if they're healthy, really it's Aiden Hutchinson that frightens me on that Detroit team. I don't really care about Jared Goff. I don't think he's all that spectacular. I don't care about the rest of the guys on that roster. It's really just Aiden Hutchinson because that guy's a freak. That dude, he's my defensive player of the year. I think he might have 20 sacks this year. And I prefer none of those 20 to come against Jaden. There's not a lot of teams that like really, really scare you, but you have to stop the run. You cannot make it easier for teams like a Los Angeles. If Justin Herbert is going to beat you, go make Justin Herbert beat you. I've seen in one-on-one matchups, Jaden Daniels gets the better of Justin Herbert. I've seen that happen in college. That's how some of us who follow college football really started to learn about Jaden Daniels. I'll take Jaden in that matchup if it's quarterback versus quarterback, but you got to stop the run because that's a team that's going to run the football. Dallas is going to be a team that's going to try and run the football. I know they got CD and they got George Pickens. I don't know that they just want to have Dak throw it 60 times. That has not been effective for them over the course of his career there. They're much better when they are a balanced offense. You cannot let offenses come in here and be balanced. And then, of course, there is the Philadelphia effect. If Saquon is healthy towards the end of the season, you can't allow him to have an absolute field day on your defense for the 4th consecutive game in a row. 5th consecutive game in a row. I'm not even counting the stuff that happened in New York. I can guarantee you he played really well against this defense when he was in New York. You got to be able to stop the run if you want to get to the place where you are playing on the final Sunday of the NFL season. Max, I haven't asked you, do you feel like that the gap has been shortened between Washington and Philadelphia based off of the moves this offseason?
It's a pretty wide gap. I mean, we saw how wide of the gap it was in that NFC Championship game. The moves that they've made to stop or try and stop Saquon Barkley, because Lord knows all you can do is try. I really like what they've done. I do think that they're better on paper. I mean, last year our starting corners were Emmanuel Forbes and Benjamin St. Juste to start the year. Now it is Trey Amos and Marshawn Lattimore. I think that is a massive upgrade.
A lot better.
Yeah. And then you throw Mikey Sainristil into the mix. I mean, he's been one hell of a player, had one hell of an offseason. I think he's going to have a transformative season this year, really put his name on the map. But yeah, I do think that they're better on paper in certain areas, but that run stopping, like, I just got to see these big bodies do what they're supposed to do. So I think they're better on paper, but I mean, we got to see it on the field, especially because these 2 games against the Eagles are like the last 3 weeks of the season. And that's what it's all going to come down to, with, 4 or 5 regular or in division matchups to close out the regular season. So, I mean, it's backloaded like crazy for this team.
Yeah, Saquon's been really healthy the last couple of years. 16 games last year, 14 the year before with New York, 16 in 2022. He has been really, really healthy, which at times is rare for a running back.
We're due for regression.
But look at the numbers he put up just against Washington. That 7 touchdowns was not a lie. 7 touchdowns in 3 games. In fact, his worst game was the NFC Championship, in which he had 15 carries for 118 yards and 3 touchdowns. That game where Washington lost on Thursday, 146 yards and 2 touchdowns. The game where Washington won, 150 yards and 2 touchdowns. That cannot happen. If that happens, things are not going to be going well for this defense. All right, coming up next, Dan Quinn's going to speak at noon, but the Terry contract numbers are out. How much money can Terry McLaurin actually make in 2025? I break it down for you. It's a Kevin Sheehan Show with Denton sitting in for Kevin on the Team 980. It's been a good week to be Terry McLaurin. Got the extension, got out on the practice field. I am drinking in every bit of like Terry content that this social team has just been desperately waiting to post. Terry and Debo standing next to each other. Just wait. That first video of Terry catching a pass from Jaden that they post on social media is going to hit like crack. I'm going to be all over it. It's the Kevin Sheehan Show with Denton Day sitting in for Kevin here on the Team 980. You can tweet me at the Denton Day. So I ran some numbers, Max. I was curious about this. I know a lot of people are interested in this as well. Just NFL contract breakdowns. I find them to be fascinating, especially with this particular scenario. Buddy Baker leaked the original contract, 3 years up to $96 million. And as soon as Schefter said up to $96 million, you're like, all right, there's some stuff missing here. So we got the details. I still think it's a good deal for Terry. He got what he wanted. I'm happy for him. How much money is he actually going to make, though, in 2025? Or how much money could he actually make in 2025? And the answer is a lot. Like a lot. So he gets a $30 million signing bonus that he gets now. So when he signed, you get the $30 million, or like it takes a couple of days. But effectively, for the sake of conversation, you sign, you get the $30 million. So immediately, $30 million in 2025. Because of that, his projected $18 to $19 million salary for this year, it does take a little bit of a hit in terms of base salary, and the base salary goes to $1.75 million. This is relatively basic across the NFL. When you have a massive signing bonus, they take that other money and they convert it elsewhere in your contract, and they give you what is the veteran minimum, which is $1.75 million for a guy in Terry's position that has been in the league as long as he's been in the league. So he has a base salary of $1.75 million. He then gets a game check for every game that he appears in for $850,000. Now, if you take $850,000 and you multiply that by 17, you get around just shy of $14.5 million. The official number is $14.45 million. So you get $30 million. You get $1.75 million in base salary, and then the earning potential of about $14.45 million. And then the incentives come in. The incentives, when we heard about this contract, were the things that I was most excited to see. So incentives in the NFL, it's really fun in like the final week of the season. You know, we had Zach Ertz in particular last year, where if he catches 7 passes and he gets 70 yards in game number 16, he gets an additional $250,000. And he did that. And then in the final week of the season, he had another opportunity. If he catches 4 passes and a touchdown for 40 yards, he gets another $250,000. And then he did that, right? So Zach Ertz made himself like $2 million or $1.5 million over like the final 3 weeks of the season, just based off of incentives. There are a lot of incentives that are available for players, right? So sometimes they are a lot smaller. Sometimes they are a lot larger. The way that Washington designed the incentives for Terry, I mean, you want to talk about when people say this was a home run for Adam Peters, this was a home run for Adam Peters. It was also kind of petty, but it was like petty in the best way. So there's an incentive for Terry McLaurin. If he catches 83 passes, he gets an additional $300,000. If he catches 83 passes and they get to the postseason, that $300,000 becomes $600,000. So the incentive is to play well and to make the postseason. Totally cool with that. If he records 1,097 yards, he gets another $300,000. And then with the playoffs in there, that jumps to $600,000. So 83 passes and the playoffs could get you $600,000. 1,097 yards in the playoffs could get you an additional $600,000. If he does both, he gets $1.2 million. Then there's the touchdown. Incentive. He gets $300,000 if he catches 10 touchdowns this year. If you get to the playoffs and he has 10 touchdowns, it is again $600,000. So if you catch 83 passes for 1,097 yards and 10 touchdowns, Terry could be making about $1.8 million. There's one final escalator. If he is a first or second team All-Pro, which he was last year, you get an additional $500,000. So if Terry catches 83 passes for 1,097 yards and 10 touchdowns, which theoretically, if you do all of that, you more likely than not are going to be on the All-Pro team in some way, shape, or form. If he does all of those things, that's about an additional $2.3 million that he could make, which gives Terry, with the $2.3 million in incentives, because we're going to assume that he hits all of these and Washington makes the playoffs, with the per game roster bonus for 17 games, adding up to about $14.45 million per year, the base salary of $1.75 million, and then the $30 million signing bonus, the earning potential for Terry McLaurin in 2025 is $48.5 million. Give me a double one. $48.5 million. That's a great contract for Terry. And what I like the most about the incentives is that everything that we know about Terry as the person, right? And all of us know his story. Not highly recruited, wanted to go to Ohio State, met with Urban Meyer. Urban Meyer said, you need to have better hands. You need to catch the ball better. And he went, I forget what the number is, but it was like 1,000. He caught 1,000 balls per week for the next 6, 8, 9 weeks, whatever it was. Saw Urban Meyer again, said, Coach, my hands have gotten better. And Urban Meyer said that. He's like, yeah, your hands have gotten better. We want you to come to Ohio State. He is a guy that is a workhorse, and he wants to be driven to something. He's very goal-oriented. I can relate. I'm goal-oriented. I like it. If I set myself a goal, I want to achieve that goal. Terry seems to be similar. Sets himself a goal, wants to achieve that goal. He could make $48.5 million. Here's why I said that Adam Peters is a little petty with some of these incentives. 83 catches, 1,096 yards, 10 touchdowns. You're probably like, oh, those are pretty easy numbers to hit. He could definitely hit that. You want to know what Terry's stat line was in 2024? 82 catches, 1,096 yards.
Outperform, and we will pay you.
They are saying exactly, hey, you're getting a little older. Our analytics says that there's a little bit of a drop-off in production when you get to a certain age. You got to be better. If you want to make the most of your contract, you got to be just a little bit better. Now, he had 13 touchdowns last year, so he would have gotten the extra $600,000, and he would have gotten the extra $500,000 for being an All-Pro. So if he had these incentives last year, maybe he did. I don't know what his contract was last year. Obviously, we were not as concerned, and there was nothing at the end of the season that was remotely close to those incentives because a bigger deal would have been made about it, like it was for Zach Ertz. But he would have, if he had these incentives last year, he would have made an extra $1.1 million. I think this is a perfect way, though, to format a contract for a guy that is approaching age 30, that has performed relatively consistently. So he has hit some of these numbers before. He caught 83 passes one time in his career. That was in 2020. That was a long time ago. He has gone over 1,097 yards 2 times in his career. He did 2020, did 2022. And then last year was the only time he's gone over 10 touchdowns in his career. The elephant in the room is obviously Jaden Daniels is now your quarterback versus some of these teams. It was like Ryan Fitzpatrick for a little bit, and then it was Taylor Heineke, and then it was Carson Wentz, and then it was just like a who's who of guys, and I didn't want to see any of them. I think Case Keenum was his quarterback for part of it in 2020, and then partially, God rest his soul, Dwayne Haskins. And then it was that weird year where it was like Keenum and Haskins, and then the one guy that's somehow still playing that Ron Rivera loved, Kyle Allen. He's still on a roster, I think, somewhere, which is just insane to me. It was just literally a revolving door of quarterbacks. So having Jaden, having an offensive coordinator that is competent for multiple years in a row is certainly something that is beneficial to it as well. But then you also hey, Deebo is here. He's going to get a lot more targets his direction. And the simple fact is, in Terry's career, he has not ever been a guy similar to a Jamar Chase, Malik Neighbors, where you're getting 150 targets per year. Amon-Ra St. Brown will get targeted 20 times in games. Terry is not that. I don't know if that's a balance between, him just not, they don't see him as that kind of guy versus the offense dictates the ball going elsewhere. But 83 catches for a receiver that is a number one wide receiver should be a relatively achievable feat. 1,097 yards, if you catch 83 passes, should be a relatively easy and achievable feat for a guy that has the talent level of Terry. What I want to see in specific in 2025 is that I want to see Terry perform like a legitimate number one wide receiver where Jaden is looking to constantly get him the football. I don't want any games like Atlanta where he had one catch for 5 yards. He was bracketed the entire time. I don't want to see any games like the first matchup against Tampa Bay. Now, that was early in the career of Jaden Daniels, early in the season. Chemistry might not have been there yet. The game's still, I'm sure, moving at lightning speed to Jaden Daniels. Not all on Terry, but he didn't perform exactly well. He didn't have a lot of catches in that game against Tampa. That first game against New York, Terry didn't have a lot of catches. I don't want to see any more games like that. You got your contract. They put some really good incentives in it, and we know that you're capable. Like, that has always been like this kind of like gut punch. I know that he's capable of being a guy to be targeted, the likes of like a Malik Neighbors. I use him as an example, one, because he played with Jaden at LSU, but because in that first game against New York, Malik Neighbors had like 12 catches, and Terry didn't, right? That first game against New York, Terry caught 6 passes for 22 yards, whereas Malik Neighbors was just shining all over the place while being thrown to by Daniel Jones. Neighbors had 10 catches for 127 yards and a touchdown. He looked like a sensational wide receiver in week number 2. I know that Terry is capable of these performances. Now that you have gotten the contract, it's time to go out there and showcase that you can do what all of these other wide receivers can do. I want an elite game and multiple elite games from Terry McLaurin. What do I consider to be an elite game? I want him over $150 and 2 tutties. He was so close to doing that against New Orleans. It felt like he could have gone for 4 touchdowns and 200 yards against New Orleans. I want Terry to have an elite game, like a legitimately elite game in 2025. He has not had a game where he went for $150 and 2 touchdowns in his career. I want that in 2025. And I know he's capable of doing that in 2025. Maybe not week 1 against the Giants just because of the nature of it, the ramp-up period. I think he'll be fine. I still anticipate he's going to play something like 80, 85% of snaps, maybe not 95%, but I anticipate that he's going to play 80, 85% of snaps in that matchup against New York. I just want him to go out there and have a legitimately elite performance multiple times. And if he does that, these numbers are going to be very easily achievable for him, assuming that Washington has the success that all of us are anticipating Washington to have. Did any of these numbers jump off the page at you, Max, or jump off the screen at you when I read these out? I mean, $48 million is a pretty nice penny to be earning.
I mean, yeah, it's the number that always jumps out to me is the workout bonus. Just after the guaranteed money kind of falls off, and it's like, if you're working out with us, we're going to pay you $500,000, and if you make the roster, $850,000, and then we're going to do it every single game after that.
Every single game.
So 2027 is definitely a year that interests me, but that's also going to be the year that we gotta pony up. So
yeah, that Jane Daniels contract is going to be
yeah,
that's going to be massive. But the nice thing is that when that contract does come up, and when Terry's inevitable contract ends up running out, I don't believe that it is going to be as much of a display for a potential fourth extension, or what they did to Deebo Samuel this year, which is, we're going to guarantee you X amount of salary. It won't be all of it, but hey, you're at 33 years old, 32, 33 years old. If you can get $15 million guaranteed in the NFL, you're going to take $15 million guaranteed in the NFL.
Yep.
Like, you're going to take that one, not going to look back. Hey, thank you. Yep, I will take that. Very gracious of you. Let's rock and roll, especially if if we can get just way ahead of ourselves in 2027, like, you're going to be hoping this is a perennial championship contender. Maybe, fingers crossed, toes crossed, prayer said, you've already won a championship at that point. Like, you're going to want to stay here. So I do think that's still in the realm, but the workout bonus is the most hilarious thing to me ever. And this is how I know that NFL players are not like regular humans the way that you and I are. If all you had to do
go to the gym
was go to the gym, buddy, if you're going to pay me $500,000 to go to the gym, I'd go to the gym. I actually pay to go to the gym right now. So if you had to pay me $500,000, I will go to the gym. If you had to pay me $500,000 to live where you live the majority of the year, like Terry is, he is plugged into the community here. lives around here, obviously, goes to yoga. We saw that. Plugged into the local church as best I know. I kind of know the pastor when he goes to church. I know one of his sons. Is plugged into that area. Like he is plugging in and putting down roots in DC, which is awesome in the Northern Virginia area. It's awesome. You pay me $500,000 just to be home. I gotta make the 10 to 15 minute drive, whatever it is, to facility. Because like all these guys live relatively close to facility. Like your commute is what, 45 minutes to work?
Yeah, depending on
Give or
traffic.
take. Yeah, depending on traffic. You know where there's not a lot of traffic? Ashburn.
Yeah.
I mean, Waxpool sucks sometimes. Gloucester might suck sometimes. Loudoun County Parkway now just goes the whole way. It's not that bad. It's 2 lanes the whole way. There was a point in time where it was like 1 lane. That sucked. I remember those days. Maybe some of you do as well. I mean, you got to pay me $500K to show up. I'll show up. Very, very
I will be
easy.
there.
I'm going to give you some numbers in regarding to Terry. So I gave you his contract and what he could earn. What does Vegas think he's going to do? And how does that impact the way that we are going to look at Terry in 2025? Plus, you'll hear some comments that he made yesterday in his press availability. It's the Kevin Sheehan Show with Denton Day, sitting in for Kevin here on the Team 980. We're going to look at Terry props in a second, but Max, I have brought great shame on the name of the show and great shame on my family. I say my family because my father is a mathematician. He has a math degree.
That's
I
tough.
royally screw these numbers up. I read it as $850,000 in per game bonus. It is $850,000 in game checks, meaning it is $850,000 total that he could make a $50,000 per game check, which means the $14.45 million that I suggested Terry could be making in per game bonuses is off by about $13.6 million.
Hey, the wording in per game roster bonuses
It made
lead
it
you to believe.
I just, I read it that way. I read it as if it was a per game. So
I did too.
All right, let me redo some math here. So if you were listening to the last segment, I'm going to hit you with the little Men in Black eraser. You ain't see it. You ain't hear it. $30 million in signing bonus, $1.75 million in base salary, $850,000 in game bonuses, which is $50,000 per game. And then the potential of $600,000 with 83 catches in the postseason, 1,097 yards in the postseason would get him another $600,000. 10 touchdowns in the postseason get him $600,000, and then $500,000 for being a second-team All-Pro, meaning Terry could make about $34.9 million. So I was off by a lot, about $13 million.
Give or
Just
take,
just
a little. It's a rounding error.
It's a rounding error. You know what? I always taught to round up. And I just read it wrong. So Terry could make $34 million. This is a sign, I think. God is telling me, stop pocket watching. Like,
that we're at that point.
Like, I gotta kill 20 minutes, God. What do you want me to do here? So as you know, I'm a gambling man, and I am intrigued with the with wagers.
It's a big week.
Terry McLaurin, it's a big week. I got some gambling plays tonight in college football for you. At the end of the show. No smell tests. I don't know. I still don't know if I'm allowed to do the smell test, although I might ask Kevin for his smell test.
I was going to say, you might.
So I can deliver them. I'll just be the messenger.
Might be worth it.
Tomorrow. Vegas has props out for Terry. This is from BetMGM. His receiving yards. Now, these did not change when he signed his contract. So Vegas always anticipated he was going to play in 2025 in some capacity. His receiving yards are listed at 980 and a hook, which is 0.5, 980 total. His receiving touchdowns are 6.5. Vegas does not think that Terry is going to hit some of his incentives. Now, it is very important. If you listen to Kevin, you kind of understand how gambling works, but I know that there are people that maybe do not who may work on this channel. This is what Vegas puts in to get money. They do not think, hey, he's going to have 981 yards.
It's what we call a rat.
They put this number out there in the hopes that they can draw money from both sides. So they have people see this number and say, this number is way too short. I'm going to throw $1,000, which do not throw $1,000 on a Terry McLaurin prop unless you really got it like that.
Don't put $1,000 on any season-long prop. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, you had to be feeling good if you throw in $1,000, you got to take Max and I out to dinner at some point. I mean,
please.
What's up? But they put this number so they draw you in. And because Terry had 13 touchdowns last year, Vegas is saying that the touchdowns from year to year are very, very frugal. And they're saying he's not going to go over 6.5. So you're going to take that one back and you're going to say, I do look at that 6.5 touchdown number and I say, well, that one seems a lot lower than the 980, because with 980, with Debo involved in the fray, I think Terry might lose a few touches, but in the red zone, he was a legitimate threat. And I don't think that's going to change. It feels like all the time people think of a red zone threat. And maybe this is because we kind of suffered through the Jay Gruden fade in the red zone era. But you think of a red zone threat as a guy that has to be 6'5". You just got to create separation. And Terry does a good job in the red zone, creating separation, but then also making the contested catches. That is where he thrives. That's been the whole talk throughout the entirety of this Terry extension, right? Is that he is so unbelievable at the contested catches. So that touchdown number does seem a little low to me at 6.5. I would stay away from the receiving yards. Now, Terry has been a 1,000-yard receiving maniac for his career. I would look much more in the direction of the touchdowns at 6.5 than I would the receiving yards at 980. There's some other props Terry, just to have 1,000 yards, you can get at -110. It is weird that those are so similar. His over 980 is like -110, but you can also just bet -110 to have 1,000 yards. Vegas is kind of weird sometimes with these props. You can also bet Terry to have 1,250 at +500. So if you really believe in Terry, you think he's going to ball out this year, +500 for a season-long future bet or season-long prop bet is a pretty nice number to have. I would look into something like that. All right, so Terry did speak yesterday. I want to play some of what he said for you. I liked a lot of what Terry got into yesterday. I thought he was honest at times. We are going to play my favorite cut from it, which I just thought was hilarious. But I want to start with just his open. There's been so much made about the winning and the losing of the contract. Who won the contract? Who lost the contract? Did Adam Peters win? Did Terry win? I think at the end of the day, everybody won because he's here, and your number one wide receiver is here. However, they started the conversation yesterday asking Terry McLaurin, did you get what you wanted out of this contract? Here's what he said.
So it was a long process, and, there's no playbook or script on how to handle this situation. And so, you start out one way, and then you hope that it ends the way it's ended. And so I'm thankful for this process to just be able to be back on the field, and just the conversations that, Buddy and AP had, and myself and AP, and me and DQ. So it's definitely been a process, but I'm really happy to be back out here with my teammates, and just very thankful to be a part of this organization and a part of this fan base that's supported me through all of this. So it's exciting.
So that's Terry on getting what he wanted out of the contract. He continued. Somebody asked him about, does he feel like he was fairly compensated as a top wide receiver? And this was Terry's response to that.
I do. And it gives me the ability to continue to stay somewhere where I love, but also continue to achieve things that allows me to play at a high level, and, prove that I'm worth what I signed for. And above all that, it just allows me to continue to play that game that I love in a place that I love with teammates that I care deeply about. And, I just thank God for this journey that I've been through. It's much more than a contract. I grew a lot during this process personally and in my faith, having my wife by my side as well. Just we grew during this season of pruning and sometimes uncertainty, and my faith just grew stronger. And I had confidence that God's will would be done, and I would have an opportunity to continue to play at a high level. And that's the opportunity that I have. And I know I have a lot of elite ball ahead of me. I know the work that I put in. God's blessed me to have an unbelievable amount of health and strength up until this point. And anybody in that building will tell you how much I take care of my body. So I'm going to continue to do those things at a high level, and continue to try to be everything that I can for this organization and my teammates and myself. So nobody expects more than from Terry McLaurin than me. And, I try to put that work in each and every day to be in that situation so I could be successful.
So that's Terry McLaurin yesterday on whether or not he was fairly compensated as a top wide receiver. One thing I do think it is important to acknowledge that while his contract is not like the 32 AAV that everybody thought it was initially, or shall I say certain people thought it was initially, this is one of the largest third contracts that has been signed as a wide receiver in NFL history. And it is, to my knowledge, the largest contract that a 30-year-old or a soon-to-be 30-year-old wide receiver has ever signed in NFL history. So while he is not compensated to the likes of a Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase just in total contract value, for a guy that is signing a third deal, which, as we talked about earlier, does not happen often. Washington, over the last, this isn't just like a Ron thing, because Ron Rivera kind of screwed this organization in terms of depth, but over the last 20 years, the team has not really signed a lot of third contracts. Tress is playing on contract number 4, but he's a punter. Ryan Kerrigan, who my first thought was he definitely got a third contract here. He did not get a third contract here. That was in an era in the NFL, Ryan Kerrigan, Trent Williams as well, where they were signing 5-year extensions. Whereas Terry's extension after the rookie deal was a 3-year extension, giving him an opportunity to then get a third extension. At a certain point, a bunch of NFL players decided we're going to stop with the 5 and 6 year extensions where we're kind of getting screwed on the back end of these deals. We're going to shorten the deals and allow us to maximize our talent before we get viewed as just kind of old, washed up, whatever the GMs and the front offices are going to look at us like. But Washington hasn't signed a lot of third contracts with guys over the last 20 years. So Terry is very much in a new territory for this team and for the wide receiver position across the NFL. It obviously was not all sunshine and rainbows, as all of you know. There were some low points in this. Here's Terry on some of those low points and thinking that a deal potentially would not get done throughout this process.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, when you get to a point where you're here for a little over, I kind of lost track of the days, but you're here for a little while and you're not out on the practice field, and things may not progress what you would like for them to progress. And again, like, I don't think everybody's situation is unique and different. So I never tried to look at this person's situation as like, this is how I handle it. I just tried to stay true to myself, but also have the open conversations that were afforded to me, both with my agent Buddy. Buddy was having great conversations with Adam. Adam gave me the opportunity to have multiple conversations with him, DQ as well. So it was just a matter of getting on the same page. I appreciate them hearing me out and being able to express what my worth is and what I bring to the table on the field and off the field as a teammate and all those things. And, in the end, they feel the exact same way. And so to be in a position where you feel like you can advocate for yourself, be educated throughout this process was something that I took day by day to try to help get to this result. So there was definitely some unknowns. Obviously, the trade request was, something that I did, and, full transparency, I told the front office this as well. Like, that wasn't something that I was doing for just like a leverage point or just to do it or let me call some hoopla. Like, I try to be as intentional as possible. Am I perfect? No, I'm not. Are there some things that, you think about that you maybe want to handle different or do better? Sure, that's any situation. But the most important part is the communication that was very important throughout this process from start to finish. The way it ended was better than it started. So that's what it's all about. And there's a deal in place now that keeps me here that I'm extremely happy about. The front office and the coaching staff is extremely happy about. My teammates are happy about. This fan base is happy about. So that's a win-win when you look at a deal, to be honest. So everybody wins, in my opinion. And, I'm just really looking forward to continue to build my career here and hopefully leave a lasting legacy as a player, but as a teammate, as a person, and have a chance to win championships and just continue to pour into this community and this fan base, because I do love this place with all my heart, but there's also a business component and I can never lose sight of that. But there was a lot of things that also allowed me to keep perspective. And like I said, my teammates were great with that. My wife, my family, my friends. So you got to try to keep perspective in some of these tough situations. And so, yeah, there were some times where I was like, I don't know, you know what I mean? But I was never going to jump to one extreme to the other. It wasn't like, I'm gonna be here or I'm not, like, I just really prayed every single day that the Lord ordained my steps and continue to speak to me. And I knew I would end up where I was supposed to be. So I'm definitely here and I'm happy about it.
That was the only time Terry addressed the trade request. Nobody asked him another question about that, which there was other stuff to get into. It's fine. But what he said at the beginning of that clip, and that was a long answer, it was about 3 minutes. What he said at the beginning of that clip was humbling. It was humbling because at points, various points, it did kind of feel like we were at times in the room. More numbers started to come out from people that we determine as reputable sources. And as those numbers come out, as rumors are being flung around, as reports, as some of Terry's boys are tweeting things, like, there were a lot of things that made us feel like at times we had 1 foot in the room, maybe 1 foot out of the room. At no point through this entire process, and this is why this is humbling, because we don't know anything. At no point in this entire process did anybody report that these two being Adam and Terry, were in constant communication. Terry just casually revealing that at the beginning of that. I got distracted by the trade and the trade request, but just casually revealing, Adam and I had a lot of conversations through this process. We saw the one where Terry was in his hoodie at the Bergen Eagles scrimmage, and the lip reading police came out, tried to decipher what is he saying, what is he not saying. No one at any point said, yeah, these guys are constantly communicating inside the building. And that's a really positive thing because that means nothing is coming out of the building.
Yeah, I mean, I think AP said it in his little joint presser with Dan Quinn. They were talking about like the multiple opportunities that, I mean, they gave Terry to kind of come in and have one-on-ones with Adam. And like you said, Terry mentioned it in his presser as well. So that just internal communication always kind of being on is so important when it comes to these kinds of negotiations and just making players feel valued and comfortable in just in general.
It made it at a point, because this thing had gone so long, and it did. Like, I don't think anyone, they even said this, no one expected it to go this long, but because it went so long, there becomes like this manufactured animosity because there is no deal. And you're seeing Adam Peters, and we as media, like, he was out there for a majority of the time. Adam Peters was just walking out there. He watches practice on the field a lot of the times, not every day, but a lot of the times. So he's constantly out there, and we're constantly seeing him, but we never really get to hear from him. And he doesn't talk to a lot of media, right? And he certainly isn't leaking things. And we saw Terry at times, but never got to talk to Terry outside of the Eastern Motors thing, which he was asked one question about that. I still think that maybe he should not have done that. But we heard from him at the Eastern Motors. Then we heard a 53-second walk and talk when he first came out. No one at any point said these guys are constantly talking about it and it's all good. Like, they're working it out. All the talks are respectful. I think in tune, we kind of saw like Adam talking with Terry at one point. And because of the stuff that was going on in Dallas, where Jerry Jones is trying to negotiate around an agent, which is a massive no-no. The NFL, CBA says you cannot do that. It's like wickedly a problem. And for whatever reason, Jerry just kind of does it willingly and doesn't get punished. But we started to think, oh, Buddy Baker's the problem. I hope Adam and Terry are just knocking this thing out and Buddy Baker's out of it. These guys were all talking regularly, and we just had no idea. That, to like, I, as a sicko that wants to be in these behind closed doors, Max, this was fascinating.
It is. And it's like we kind of also assumed that they were talking up until the Eastern Motors thing when Terry came out and was like, there's been no communication in months, guys. We got to get something going. So I don't really know like how much communication was going on, especially because like we're post deal now. So there could have been a little bit of stretching of the truth. But I mean, we still have no idea, and nobody does, especially in local media, which is, they're the most plugged in, man.
I cannot stress this enough, and this is not just because Max and I work in the local media.
We know nothing.
But local media always knows more.
Yep.
Because the local media is significantly more plugged in than the national media. Like, Schefter broke the news because Buddy Baker is communicating with Schefter and your Jordan Schultzes and those sorts of guys. But in terms of like the ins and outs and the daily happenings of the franchise, the local media knows best, and nobody knew that they were in constant communication. Now, you mentioned Eastern Motors. Adam Peters was asked about Eastern Motors. I want you to hear what he said when we get back. It's the Kevin Sheehan Show with Denton sitting in for Kevin here on the Team 980.
All right, here's what's happening on this Thursday, August 28th. The Commanders. It was announced this morning they are bringing in former Jet and Michigan Wolverine running back Donovan Edwards, and they are also signing cornerback Darius Rush to the practice squad. The Nats, they fall to the Yankees in a horrendous game by a score of 11-2. Kate Cavalli balloons his ERA from 2.82 to 5.11 after only 2 1/3 innings. The Nats were unable to get the train back on the tracks with a terrible 77-pitch third inning that enabled the Yankees to score 9 runs. The Nats, they are off tonight and will make the trip home. They take on the Tampa Bay Rays at home tomorrow night. And tonight, the Mystics are taking on the New York Liberty right here on the Team 980. Tip-off at 7 p.m. Be sure to stay tuned following Rick Doc Walker for Burgundy and Gold today. This update is sponsored by the Team 980 YouTube page. Just open the app, type in the Team 980, hit subscribe. Kevin Sheehan is live every day from 10 to 1, and you can catch Den's office throughout all football season. Don't forget to hit the like button whenever you do decide to join us, and turn on notifications to stay up to date on all things DC sports. And that is what's trending.
It's the Kevin Sheehan Show. Denton Day sitting in for Kevin here on the Team 980. You can tweet me at the Denton Day. Dan Quinn is scheduled to speak to the media in about 15 minutes. You will hear that presser in its entirety right here on the show. All Commanders Talk on the Team 980 is presented by Paramount Plus. You can't count on much these days, but you can always count on Sundays with the NFL on CBS and Paramount Plus. Watch your local NFL game live every Sunday on CBS and Paramount Plus all season long. Visit ParamountPlus.com/NFL to get started today. I listened to both Adam Peters and Terry McLaurin yesterday. There were two things that stood out to me as just downright hilarious. I don't believe they intended to be hilarious, but they were hilarious. I'm going to start with Adam Peters. I texted Mitch Tischler, who asked this question after thanking him, because I was listening to this entire press conference and I was like, somebody has to ask him about Eastern Motors.
Please,
somebody
one
has
person.
to ask him about that press availability that Terry did when he said, we're not talking, but he said, we're not talking like 4 times in 30 minutes. Here's what Adam Peters said when he was asked about Terry's press availability following that Eastern Motors shoot in July.
I didn't really watch that, to be honest with you. But I mean, I heard that he was frustrated, and I wanted to, I heard that loud and clear just by the reaction and everything. So, it was like, okay, let's make sure we fix this and make sure we get this thing right. And it shows you how much he cared. How much he cared about this team, how much he cared about being here. And so I think in its own way, I'm sure that helped us get this thing across the finish line.
Adam Peters is hilariously unbothered. This was a massive talking point for like 2 weeks. I mean, we examined the Eastern Motors press conference from every single angle possible, and then we made up new angles to examine it from. All for Adam Peters to be like, I didn't watch it. It wasn't worth my time. I'm good. I didn't watch it.
You guys bled into another show? Nah, I don't care.
He's like, I don't know what he was doing, but this does kind of lead back to the point that I tried to make in favor of the team, is that they probably had a planned period where there was not going to be negotiating.
Probably, yeah.
They were like, hey, we're probably not going to talk a lot here. Around that time, it was 4th of July, and just generally after, mandatory minicamp, you take in mandatory OTAs, you take a little bit of time, you just allow people to go elsewhere. And I distinctly remember
summer, I'm trying to decompress,
when they made the video package for Art Monk, and they had videos of Dan Quinn and Adam Peters, and it looked like they weren't in Ashburn. I think I saw palm trees in one of those videos. And I'm like, okay, everyone is kind of unplugged right now from the wear of football. So I never really had a problem with them not speaking for months, but I just felt like that was the final thing that Adam Peters said in his press availability. And it's the final time we will hear from him for probably a little bit. I don't know when we'll hear from him again, maybe at the end of the season, or if something massive happens.
Trade deadline
between now and then, like maybe a trade deadline, maybe. You're not going to hear a lot from him. And the final thing he said was, I didn't watch that Eastern Motors thing. That 30-minute thing that all you guys were so
invested
so worried about.
Nah.
I didn't watch. I didn't watch that.
He was on the beach, bro.
He is a fascinating character.
He is.
Like getting in the head of Adam Peters. I don't know that I will ever get there. It's funny too, because I'm pretty sure him and Dan Quinn went to the AC/DC concert.
Hell yeah,
that took place at Northwest. I almost called it FedEx at Northwest in Landover. I distinctly remember seeing Adam Peters and Dan Quinn posted up for AC/DC, and that's like right around the time where Terry's like, we're not talking, and they're just like,
we're having a great time.
Bro, I'm thunderstruck. Like, what are you talking about? I'm on the highway to hell right now. Like, I got to rock out to AC/DC.
We're shaking all night long, baby.
I just found that hilarious that he is so unbothered. He did not watch that. I heard. Yes, somebody mentioned that he was a little frustrated in that thing, and it almost like feels moderately disrespectful.
A little bit.
That Terry does the thing to kind of like send a message, and they're just like, nope, we're good. Doesn't bother us at all.
Why would I?
Now, Terry said something funny, too. This was funny as to not get the team in massive amounts of trouble. Here's Terry when being asked about his ankle and what is going on with his ankle and the pup list.
Yeah, I'll just keep that between me and the front office and the training staff. But I will say, like, they did a great job of taking care of me, making sure I was right. Being back on this field with this ramp up process. And, I'm just going to continue to build from there, and just happy to be back on the grass. So it was a great ramp up process for me to be back out here. I feel great when I'm running out there. And so the strength staff, the training staff, and, DQ and everybody was supportive of me and allowing me to get back, to this level where I'm able to hit the ground running. That's what it's all about.
The ankle's fine. He'll be good. He's good for week 1. You got to ramp up. Just the ramp up is very much for your hamstrings, the muscles inside of, the groin, making sure maybe the calf is okay. The ramp up does not seem to be for the ankle in any capacity. It's just making sure your knees are good, getting used to cutting, running
that soft
routes.
tissue, right?
Yeah, all the soft tissue stuff, rollouts, get in the cold tub, maybe get the massage gun, whatever you do just to make sure everything is good there. This is what the ramp up is for. He got an $87 million that could potentially be a $96 million Band-Aid. The ankle's fine. He's good. We knew that. We're not going to play dumb here. I think everybody was fully aware when the contract was going to be signed, he was going to be able to get on the practice field, on the grass, and he was going to be good to go.
You know what I find hilarious, Denton? Yesterday was his first day on the grass.
Yep.
At practice.
On the grass.
And a video, I don't remember, I think it was Nikki or John or one of the beat guys and gals, posted a video of just Terry going through they were doing individual work for wide receivers, and they were clearly doing a jog through of this drill. And Terry just kind of, he didn't even run. He just went 1, 2, quick little stop, turn. They were like, man, he's not taking any chance. Like, guys, it's a jog through. It is a Wednesday, a week and a half before the first game. He's not going to be going all out immediately after he signs this deal. What are you talking about?
But you know what's crazy is that there was another pass that I think Scott Abraham put this out there, where then you did see him run up the sideline, and you're like, all right, he's fine.
He's fine.
He's fine. Like, everything is precautionary. Terry's going to be good to go. And now for Terry, you can look at 2025. We spent so much on the contract stuff, right? Let's be a little bit more optimistic. You can look at 2025 as a really, really strong opportunity for Terry to cement what most of us already know, but to cement that he is one of the greats to ever play in this organization's history. You look at guys that have come before him, Santana Moss, Ricky Sanders, whose touchdown record he broke last year, all of the guys that played in championship eras, obviously Art Monk, they just retired his jersey, Gary Clark. There have been a lot of really good wide receivers that have come before Terry McLaurin. A lot of those really good wide receivers also won championships. Yeah, Santana Moss. A lot of those wide receivers also won championships. They put up really big numbers, and they won championships. Putting up big numbers is great. Santana Moss put up good numbers when he was here in Washington under very similar circumstances to Terry, in that there was not a real consistency at quarterback, and the only consistency that there wasn't spectacular. I think the quarterback that he caught the most passes from, this being Santana Moss, I believe was Jason Campbell.
Ugh.
I thought Jason Campbell could have been really good with a good offensive line. As most of you know, the offensive line those years kind of sucked. Coaching wasn't great either, because some of that was Jim Zorn. Joe Gibbs coaching was good. Jim Zorn coaching was not. Terry is now through that period. You got a quarterback. You got the opportunity to win a lot of games. You're going to start to view him differently as they continually become a team that is making deep runs into the postseason, and then hopefully, eventually, winning a championship, with him being a key part to winning a championship. Because right now, before you can even get into discussions about the best wide receiver in franchise history, which is Art Monk, but before you can even really supplement or put Terry in those discussions with any sort of legitimacy, there's always the carrot above the head of, did you win a championship? Art Monk, yes. Championship, Hall of Famer. Gary Clark, championship. Sanders, championship. All of these guys that are currently occupying those slots in terms of best wide receivers in franchise history, you can go back to Charlie Taylor, all these guys, right? You can go back, all won a bunch of championships. This is the first time in a long-ass time that a really, really good player now has the opportunity to cement himself as legitimately one of the greats in the franchise's history, because the franchise is finally now having success. And that was not asked about Terry yesterday. That was not asked really about with Adam Peters and Dan Quinn. But I have to think in some capacity or another, that did factor into the conversation, or to the mental thought process for Terry. I have been here for forever. I would like to be here for forever. just generally on a human level, moving sucks. It's a lot easier for professional athletes because they have more resources than us normal people, but moving still sucks. And then now I have an opportunity. If you're really chasing greatness, like if you're just doing this for the money, you are going to go where the money calls you. With all due respect to Kirk Cousins, Kirk Cousins is in it for the bag. He literally just goes where the money is calling him. It's not necessarily about exclusively chasing greatness. Now, you can do both. It's possible.
But if you're going to offer it to me,
yeah, I don't blame Kirk Cousins. Like, that man has made nearly $500 million, despite the fact that he's like a relatively average quarterback. Sorry, Kevin.
Mid of mid.
But Terry has now an opportunity to make really good money, but also cement a legacy here in a football town that will sustain him for the rest of his life. If you win a championship in DC and you are a critical part of the team, and on top of that, it has been this massive drought, you are good for life here in the DMV. Restaurants are going to work. Media availabilities, Eastern Motors will always have you on. You'll be doing Paisanos ads. You'll be doing local BetMGM ads for the National Harbor. Like, you'll be doing all these ads. You will always have an avenue to make money here in DC. I'm really happy for Terry in that regard, and I'm really excited to see whatever this length of contract actually ends up being for him, if he can continue to level up the game and then ultimately get himself into the caliber of not just Ring of Fame, but legitimately in that conversation with your Art Monks as being one of the greatest wide receivers to ever play here. I'm Denton Day. I'm sitting in for Kevin Sheehan. Dan Quinn at the podium from Ashburn next on the Kevin Sheehan Show.
All right, welcome back to the Kevin Sheehan Show. Dan Quinn live at the podium out in Ashburn right now. We take you live to Dan Quinn.
All right, what's up, everybody? Final. All right, our final wrap up, training camp, decisions, all of that. To kind of discuss that. After today's practice, the players will also get a 3-day break over the weekend. And they need it too. Our times together with them are really intense. So their time to recharge and go. But practice today is really squarely on us and things that we need to hit on, things we need to work, timing, execution, our skill work, end of the game situation. So we're going to go right back into it, into that spot. And finally, and most importantly, Mike Sainristil and John Jones are excused today for 2 very good and special reasons.
Okay.
It's pretty weird. Yeah.
It worked out. It worked out last year. With Terry and Jaden, like, how much are they able that they're doing to just maybe get that connection back? What are some of the little things they're doing to regain that?
Yeah, I think more of it just, time on task, John, honestly, to say, do they have experience together? Yes. Banked reps? Yes. But still, like yesterday, we ran a deep play action, that was over to Terry. That was like good route that you'd seen before. So now let's say, let's work this one some more, this one a little bit more. So Jaden's excellent with that, to work a specific route with a specific player on some things. And so that's what you'll see more with him and Terry, extras, earlies, this specific route, this timing, because it's not all the same for every player. And so that's kind of the challenge of it, from a quarterback and a receiver, the playing zone where you're, back facing the quarterback, but, deep overs, comebacks, the timing of it. So that's what they'll continue to work through.
Obviously, they're both very good players, right? But together, the connection, the red zone, all that. Is there something else about how they operate besides just being good that allows them to have a certain connection?
I would say the complementary reason that comes to mind first, I would think, John, is one's an exceptional deep ball ability to go track it, and the other's exceptionally throwing it. So I think maybe there's, I've never really thought of it in that way, but there's probably some complementary football that goes to one another. So here's a guy that can really go and get on top of people and catch it over different shoulders on a deep ball, and a quarterback who's got the touch to do it. So I think that's probably the biggest complementary piece, of their games, that they're able to, support one another on two of the things that they both do really well.
To the guys who made this squad, they take a deep breath, exhale. What about you guys who sat there and went over every different name and every player and went back and forth?
Yeah.
When you finally make that 53, how did you guys react?
Yeah, it's a hard thing. It's not as hard as the players going through it. That's for sure. They have the toughest spot, but there were a lot of ones that kept us up at night. Let's think through it again. Get a late text from Adam, this and this. So, like a either or, a scenario. And so I like going through those exercises with him, Chick, because it also gets me to think of it in different ways. And so I had, for my own knowledge, I wanted the coaches, they're going to rank everybody at this spot and what their roles would be week 1. What about week 5? So we could think about what it looks like today and then what it looks like a month or 2 from now. So as coaches, you do have to think that way. And then also, I know we talk about practice squad and not, but I think of it like 70 men, knowing that here you're counted on to be responsible, to be ready. And so if that's an elevation this week or a following week, it's going to happen. So I want them to just prepare and play in that way. So it's not like they don't get reps at practice. They do. And I want to make sure that these are the standards and how we have to go about them.
And with the departure of B-Rob, a guy like C-Rod, Chris Rodriguez, he's been here now 3 years. His evolution is what to you?
consistent for one. I would say like when somebody can demonstrate over and over again that they're willing to put the work in, find the right read, just not just the physical skill, but mentally on the special teams. Like he's a player chick that this team really trusts. If you ask Larry, like yesterday, he was giving the look on punt to another player who's playing the wing. That's the same spot Chris often plays. So that move that he hit, he knows what stresses him. And so I thought, what a great example of like Jeremy and him providing the look of things that can be troublesome to some of the other players. And if you can get your team to a spot like that where they're testing one another and pushing one another, that's a really big deal. And I think Chris is a great example of that. I saw it in the preseason games, whether he was just excited when Bill had a big run against Cincinnati as he was for himself. And so that doesn't happen all the time. And but I like his fight. I like that he really worked hard to change his body. And, you know, those are things that when people continue to show you that, then like you pay attention.
To follow up on that, did you intend to keep 4 backs once you guys traded Brian Robinson? Did you know you would keep 4 backs, and how much did Chris's play in preseason camp and I guess even late last season kind of play into his getting a spot this year?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I think it was definitely like usually it's at the skill spot. How many tight ends? How many running backs? The evolution also of the return game, Nikki, that's influenced me too, because those are more plays and examples to go see if we can, further even that starting field position. Right now at the touchback on the 35, we're anticipating a lot of people putting it into play, but we don't know that yet. And so I think that part of the game it feels running back-ish. Not to say that Debo is a receiver, but he runs hard like a back in a lot of ways. So he's certainly another one that we'll have, but I think that is a big part of it. We think of like an A back and a B back, Austin out of the backfield, third down. So it's not one size fits all, but I do like the versatility of the room.
Cliff said a week or so ago that you can't really tell what the offense is until you got some of the pieces back.
Right.
Now that you have those 2 receivers back, I know you don't have Sam Cosmi back yet. Are you able to see what the offense is yet? I mean, given the limited time frame before the opener?
Maybe not fully, but I do know that like we've still run the same. So it's not like the system changes. So putting them into some of those plays may look differently because of who the ball player is, at that spot. But it's not like a new system comes in. So I think that's important to know. For 10 others on that specific play, they'll be doing the same exact job. So let's face it, well, that I think it grows, like I'm hopeful that the team we are in 1 is going to be really strong and stronger in 4 and stronger in 8 as we're building it. And if we hit all the marks, then we should do that. Our skills should get sharper, but I like the competitiveness at the receiver spot. And it's not just, Terry and Debo and Noah, but like Jalen is that way. Luke is that way. Like these are guys that like to battle for it. Our league is made up of a lot of contested catches. And it's one of the things Terry's exceptional at. Debo's in that same space. Noah is there. Certainly Luke and Jalen, they make up like a fierce competitive group. And so that's important. And knowing that like in tight coverage, these guys are going to go fight for the ball.
Yes, sir.
Hey, Dave.
I know that the offensive line is a unit, and John's part of that too. And so there's a lot of moving parts, but do you have a working theory as to which side you'd like to run to on 3rd and 2, 4th and 1?
You're like, I like that you included John. I think Don Warren would be awful proud of you to put the tight end as part of the O-line. He is an exceptional blocker. I don't know that yet. No, but I do like the athleticism of the group. And so we have tested gap pulling schemes to the left, to the right, putting different guys in different spots. Coleman's been back in there. He's another guy that can get to the move. We've improved also in the screen games because we're ready to go to one side. But as far as like, hey, on 4th down, got to have it going to this side, we're not there yet to say this is where the ball is going to go.
You're not there yet with.
Yeah, or I'm not there to share that with you yet. I might be closer to that than I'm letting on, but I'm closer, closer than you.
Next week, with the schedule, how much Packers do you put in next week along with the Giants, given that you got a short schedule the following week?
The coaches really had to be the ones to put it in over the weekend, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. So while Adam and I were busy with that, they really dug in on Green Bay. And so that way, when they could then, as the week went on, then it kind of shifted. But having a Thursday game is challenging. Having a Thursday game at week 2 is better than week 7, because having, I don't know if the term would be exactly right, like a preseason bye, you know how we've changed the schedule. So this window allows flexibility. I'm sure some teams are just doing, hey, 2 weeks on the opponent they're playing in the opener. But with that Thursday, there is some windows that the coaches aren't with the players, and they had Sunday off. I met with them by myself Monday. The players then had off Tuesday to begin practice Wednesday. So there was some pockets that they were able to do that. And then you have to shut the folders and put that in the drawer, and it doesn't come back out again until that Monday. But it did help.
It did. Fourth down success last year was such a big part of the team story.
Right.
Like history and like just probability would say it's very difficult to duplicate 87% success rate in fourth
Agreed.
down. So how do you approach that? The idea that you're chasing that, but it's also probably not something you can like count on.
Yeah.
Achieving again.
It's not all one, going into the game. Sometimes it's, I want to make sure we're stealing another possession. So there's some strategy going on with that. It's about like 9 drives or so a game as you're going through it. And so how do we gain an advantage on somebody? Sometimes going for it on fourth does that. Where's the kicker, comfort level to go into that space? And then it's really by the distance. You look at the opponent, where do they fall on the end ones? How about in twos? Where do they play on the 3s and 4s? If it's a certain style, maybe you're more apt to know what you're going to expect. But yeah, Jaden was a big factor, in that 87% or whatever the number was. There was a handful for sure that was called one thing, and then something happened and like he made the rest go down. Like we don't have a play called that. You don't want to count on that. That's a reactive way of the ball player doing his thing, but you don't want to lean into that. I think that's irresponsible. You want to make sure, hey, this is what we think we're going to do, how we're going to go down. But really by game is we make those decisions as much as we can before the game. So going in, the coordinators know what to expect, how we're going to do it. And then as the game unfolds, I'll communicate with them, where we're at. But I think the secret for me on telling the coordinators is early in the drive. So no one's ever caught off guard. Hey, we're going to go for it here, because it can impact some of your third down calls if it's into fourth down, knowing that you may have 2 downs.
Follow up on what John was asking before about quarterback receiver connection. You've defended a lot of those. You had Matt and Julio in Atlanta. For you, like, what are kind of like the earmarks of what makes a great quarterback receiver tandem, aside from just great skill by both players?
From my defensive perspective, this route's going to happen, and they still complete it. Like that's the hardest. Like, damn, we talked about this throw or this route, and they're so exceptional at that they were able to put it in the right location at the right spot. But it is a real thing. The connection, chemistry, all of that matters. The best of the best to make sure those moments are delivered upon. But we're fortunate that Jaden and Terry are 2 that do that extra.
Hey, Dan, you mentioned.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good to be back.
Yeah.
You mentioned Jalen Lane. I guess I'll start with a specific question. You knew what you were getting in him kind of when you drafted him. What has surprised you about him over the past couple weeks?
We knew the punt return ability was really strong. What I probably didn't know, and I knew he was fast and explosive, but the way that he's taken to coaching from Bobby, you can almost see the drill work come into the play. And so like there's a specific way you run an option route when somebody's on you. You don't want to hustle too quickly because then the defender's not really into the stress. So seeing him fully express how to work somebody into a technique, that's a really big deal, because in college, especially on offenses that play really fast, there's not as much man-to-man. And so that's one of the things that can be more challenging for a slot or a wide receiver that's playing in a tempo offense, like, because college plays faster than we play. So you see less matching and tight coverage. So they're able to run their routes at full speed and hit it and go to the next play. And so running an option route, defeating leverage, beating people in man-to-man, that's been an impressive, I'm not going to call it catch up, but like development from the time he's arrived to where he is today.
And then a philosophical question. I know he played for his dad in high school, and you probably get a lot of guys who are sons of coaches. Is that like an overblown thing, or is there something different about guys who grew up around the sport in that way?
That's a better question for Jalen. I would say it's got to factor in somehow when you're 5 years old and you're at football practice when other people aren't. You saw things that happen, and I'm sure, like, it matters. Cliff's father was a defensive coordinator, so that different sides of the ball, and coached him so he said, yeah, try throwing an interception in high school when your dad's the D coordinator. Not so easy. So with Jalen, like being around football his whole life, is that a factor on why some of those things are coming easier? Possibly. But at the end of it, man, like, I like just the work that he's putting in for these rookies, what they're doing right now. This is the hardest thing they've ever done. And that's a real thing. But they'll make it, but they have to put in the work, whether you grew up as a coach's kid or not. Like, it comes down to what we do out on the field, on the grass, like at practice. That's where it has to go down. And I'm encouraged because what I've seen from him is this steady rise.
Good afternoon, Coach.
Yep.
We talked extensively about you taking lessons from your first head coaching run to this one and not copy pasting, making things better this time around. Having led a previously successful team through training camp this year, what are some of the lessons you pulled from that last experience to this one?
I really lean in, David, and you'll appreciate this from the military side, is the after actions. What did I like? What did we need to do differently? What needs to stay the same? And so that prepared me to go into, okay, from a coaching side in these practices, we changed the length of our individual session to being longer. They wanted more time on more skill work. The team's in better shape now, so we practiced a little bit longer. We got more reps than we did last year in almost the same amount of time. So we're becoming more efficient, but because the guys are really fit and they're ready in the system, it's allowed us to practice more. So that's been a benefit. So I would say, looking back before you begin the planning of what took place on the last training camp, what did I like? And I just finished this year's things I liked. So that'll go into the drawer and be ready for 26. But it does help to have an after action process to say, this went well, we need to do this more. And that's how I went about it.
Hey, Coach. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Trying to decide which one. So when you take a look at the preseason and you all's performance, run defense performance, what were your takeaways there, and how did that mirror to where you all landed on the roster?
Sure. I would say our tackling got better as we went, Candy. So first game, I didn't like it at all. Second game got better. As we got to Baltimore, I liked it better. As far as the run defense goes, if I just counted the preseason games, it'd be incomplete. So in totality, I like where we've added guys into the mix. Eddie, JK, Wise, like, these are some big, strong guys inside. So I'm pleased with the trajectory there. So it was a combination of adding some personnel, and then I would say, like, the technique feels better going into it. It'll always be something I see us working on, but our tackling, that's to me the top of the pile. And we're not where I think we need to be and will be. I feel that way every year at this time because it's the thing we don't do full on. And so tackling feels like it gets better defensively kind of as the season grows, and you got to stay on the skill for that. But I'm much more pleased than I am a year ago sitting here at this time. That's for sure.
Hey, Coach. When you look through training camp and preseason, was there any wow moments for you that you did not expect to see?
Man, that's a good one. Going into the season, the communication defensively reached a new level, and I was pleased to see that, Donna. And like, that may not seem like a wow one for the coaches, I mean, for the fans or for somebody watching practice, but the level of focus it takes to get that communication right. I know that the players and the coaches, man, they are putting in work. And so the walkthroughs, the consistency of that, the wow moment probably came for me. It was like before Baltimore, we had a practice that was designed only for situations. And I really pushed us to ones that come up a lot and some that don't come up very often. But their ability to execute on that day and what I would call winning time moments, that showed me, wow, like they've put in the work and they have an understanding of what we want to get done. Sideline catches, timeouts, long field goals, onside kicks. Those are the separators between winning and losing so many times. So I really wanted us to get tested and test the times, the thresholds. So that would have been my wow moment. I was expecting, let's hit that one again. Let's repeat that play. And I only did that probably twice in that whole practice, where I was expecting, I bet 5 or 6 more times that it wasn't quite right, because you don't really get a second chance when there's 6 seconds left and you have no timeouts and you got to get the ball out of bounds. Like either you do or you don't. And so that was a good sign for me that both sides of the ball on teams, like they've been putting in that work in the winning time. So that would be my wow moment. We got a lot of work to do. Just that's how I feel about practice, man. You just keep going for it, Donna, and eventually you keep getting better and better. But I like that we had a really good practice yesterday. It sometimes feels weird. Okay, who's here? Who's
there? He did mention a couple of absences. There are some guys that are having children, or their wives, I should say, are having children today. My wife will occasionally send me TikToks from Mikey Sanderstill's wife, and she was like very pregnant. So I believe they are having children today. So congratulations and best of luck to the wives, because they're the ones doing the hard work there. I do want to point one thing out. We're going to dive a little bit more into some of the things that Dan Quinn said. And there's also one other thing that Adam Peter said yesterday that I want to play that is massive. But I do want to point out the Commanders signed Donovan Edwards to their practice squad. I love Donovan Edwards. I think this is a fantastic move for Washington. What does it mean initially? Not much. Like, he's a practice squad player. Are we going to see Donovan Edwards in an actual jersey this year? Maybe not. I mean, I don't know how much we can expect a practice squad player to move up. However, what I'm excited about is that Donovan Edwards came from a championship pedigree at Michigan. He was supposed to be awesome in 2024, and he was not. He was just fine. He was on the cover of EA Sports College Football, which is kind of like a hilarious thing. It was Quinn Ewers, Travis Hunter, and Donovan Edwards. One of those guys won the Heisman. One of them was drafted in like the 6th or 7th round, that being Quinn Ewers, and the other one was not drafted and is now on Washington's practice squad. So not the best 3 guys to pick initially for the return of that video game. However, Donovan Edwards is explosive. That's why they signed him. They took him to the practice squad because the one thing that he did well, he did it well against Ohio State. He did it well in the championship game that Michigan ended up winning against Washington. He creates explosive plays. When he hits the hole and there's a gap there, he can take what is normally a 7-yard gain and potentially make it a 25 to a 30-yard gain. He has real speed. He ran a 4.4 in the combine or at his pro day. I think he used his pro day 40. He ran a 4.4 leading up to the draft, but he has 4.4 speed with the ball in his hands too. So I really like the addition of Donovan Edwards as much as I like most practice squad additions, probably a little bit more. But I think that is, I'm never going to be upset at the organization who is attempting to build a championship culture for signing guys that played in really big games in college with the hopes that maybe if you do come up to the roster, that things are going to be really, really well and you'll be prepared for games that you're playing. It's one of the reasons why, Booger McFarland talked about this earlier when he joined us. If you missed that conversation, you can rewind on YouTube, the Odyssey app, or it'll be available on podcast. Jane Daniels is a guy that played in really tough environments. Well, Donovan Edwards is that too. So he's just on the practice squad, but the addition of a guy at running back where you can never have too many running backs, explosive playmakers, I am a big, big fan of the addition of one Donovan Edwards. So a couple of other things that Dan Quinn mentioned, plus one comment Adam Peters made that should have everybody smiling ear to ear. It's Denton Day sitting in for Kevin Sheehan on the Team 980. Something Dan Quinn mentioned that I find to be really unique, maybe not as unique as I thought, but I just have never heard a coach say this before. It's a Kevin Sheehan show with Dente sitting in for Kevin here on the Team 980. The first 4 days of Washington's season is going to be a difficult one. You have the Sunday game against New York and then an immediate short week to take on Green Bay on Thursday. I don't like Thursday night games, week number 2. I think you should at least wait until week 3 or 4 to play Thursday night games to allow everybody to get your feet underneath of you before you have these short weeks. But the NFL laughs in the face of safety, so I don't really care. Dan Quinn acknowledged that there are coaches on staff that are already preparing for Green Bay. To make the quick turnaround easier, they have guys that are already starting that process. So you play the game on Sunday. I would imagine you have the off day on Monday in terms of physicality, but you then begin the install, and then you work on that on Tuesday, off day, walk through Wednesday, game on Thursday. It's a tough slot. It's tough to squeeze a lot of things into what effectively ends up being a 3-day span, because by the time you get to Thursday, it is the game. You are not installing anything else. It's the game. You got to go out there and play. I've never heard a coach, though, come out there and say, yeah, we're already looking towards Green Bay, because almost every single time you're asking a coach about that, we're just focused on what's ahead of us. We're not getting too far ahead of us. We're focused on New York. We're on to New York, whatever capacity, right? You very rarely hear a coach say, no, we actually have guys that are planning in advance. I love this, the way that they seem to operate. It's not crazy new school, but it's not crazy old school. There's a fluidity with how Washington and Dan Quinn operates. And that has been really, really interesting to see. And I do wonder how much of that is based off of some things that maybe did not go as well in Atlanta. Remember when Dan Quinn got here and everyone panned the hire, knew Ron Rivera, yada, yada, yada. But one of the things that he had said was that he did a full evaluation with anyone that ever worked from him. Hey, what did I do really well? What did I not do really well? And I have to imagine that this line of thinking came from that evaluation, where Thursday night games, believe it or not, in a majority of Dan Quinn's time in Atlanta, were not as prevalent as they are now. A lot has changed in 8-10 years or whatever it has been since he was in Atlanta. But I have to imagine that there was something that he got from a coach, multiple coaches, that adjusted the way that he decides to run an organization. Because make no mistake about it, he is running this particular organization from a coaching staff. So I think that this comes from that, but it is very refreshing to get a coach that's we are adjusting, we are doing things differently. We are not afraid to get out at a podium and say, we have started trying to prepare for Green Bay. You can't really do a whole lot this far in advance because you haven't really seen them play. Once you actually watch the film on Green Bay, I think you'll see some things that, hey, we need to prepare for this that we maybe had not have thought of before, because they weren't doing this in the preseason. And this is something different than what they were doing last year and some of the changes that they have made. So you have to adjust some things that you're already starting the preparation process for once they play a real football game that matters. But I just found that was the one answer that maybe stood out the most from Dan Quinn's availability today, is that they have already started that process for Green Bay. And I kind of love it. I really, really like that they're not afraid to start doing and operating that way, Max.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely the turnaround is so rapid.
It sucks.
It's for a Thursday night football game. We saw it last year, and they talked about it before the Eagles game. They didn't have time to fully implement everything that they wanted to in that offense for that week. So they were kind of behind. Jaden had a broken rib. So I mean, I'm coping with excuses, but at the same time, those are real, and those are very legitimate things that happen during short weeks for Thursday night football. So getting ahead of that in whatever way you can, much like this, having guys work on it early, you're not taking away the full focus of the team, but you're also, bringing it kind of into focus slowly but surely and kind of making it work
right.
fluidly.
And I should say that they've spent a lot of the last 3 days trying to get ahead. I imagine that there's going to be a point where If it's not today, maybe sometime next week. They have a lot of off days. They're off tomorrow, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday for Labor Day holiday, just to allow the team to kind of get away, relax a little bit before the grind of the season actually begins. Next week, I would imagine it's all about New York. So they're not going to have guys, planning for two at once.
Yeah.
I think that can be a little bit almost too blurry, and some of those things can bleed into one another, which you don't want. But the fact that they're already starting the process by saying we've started the last 3 days developing something, and I would imagine the complexity of that game plan is not going to be at an all-time high. What are the things that we do really, really well? What are the things we are expecting them to do really, really well? Well, we're going to focus on stopping that, and we're just going to really prioritize the things that we do particularly well. And we are just going to hope and pray that Michael Parsons is not on that team by the time we get to that Thursday night game in week number 2. I don't believe that Micah is going to get traded, but it was kind of funny to see that on social media, all because a fullback who I would assume was watching film of Micah Parsons. The funny thing is with some of these trades is it's not like there is some inside information, but it's not like there's a ton. Like, what is a fullback going to know unless he's in these trade negotiation rooms? How is he going to know whether the team is actually going to trade for Michael Parsons? Like, what inside information is Kay Adams potentially going to have that a team is going to trade for Michael Parsons? Probably not a lot. I can't imagine someone in Green Bay's office, or God forbid Dallas's office is like, we should probably leak to Kay Adams that we might trade for Michael Parsons.
It's just the power she wields, bro.
It is the power she wields. She got grown men revealing a lot of secrets. I can't blame her.
You know who else has grown men revealing a lot of secrets, and we're going to find out what kind of secrets on September 11th, the Thursday night football game?
Taylor Rooks.
That's right.
She sat down with Jaden Daniels. The best Jaden Daniels interview that I have seen from this offseason was by a local guy, friend of the program, had him on before. Evan Washburn was tremendous with Jaden Daniels.
Mm-hmm.
He's been doing a lot more interviews. He did the Sports Center thing when Sports Center was here. He did not Get Up, but Up and Adams with Kay Adams when Kay Adams was here. Evan Washburn got like nearly 12 minutes out of Jaden, which is very, very rare. It was a fantastic, fantastic interview. So if you haven't watched that, I would encourage you to do so. This was at the very beginning of training camp, but it was fantastic. He was excellent with Evan, and Evan's just a great interviewer. All right, one more thing that I want to hear from Adam Peters. We'll do that when we get back. It is the Kevin Sheehan Show with Dent Day, sitting in for Kevin here on the Team 980.
All right, here is what's happening. Jeff Walker is trying to write me a message through the glass, but that's not important right now. What is important is that the Washington Commanders are bringing in former New York Jet and Michigan Wolverine running back Donovan Edwards and cornerback Darius Rush to the practice squad. The Nats, they fall to the Yankees last night by a score of 11-2. Cade Cavalli balloons his ERA from 2.82 to 5.11 after only 2 1/3 innings pitching. The Nats, they were unable to get the train back on the tracks with a horrendous 77-pitch third inning that enabled the Yankees to score 9 runs. The Nats are off tonight for the road trip home. They will take on the Tampa Bay Rays from Nats Park tomorrow night. Tonight, you got the Mystics taking on the New York Liberty right here on the Team 980 tip-off at 7 p.m., so be sure to stay tuned following Doc Walker for Burgundy and Gold today. This update is sponsored by the Team 980 YouTube page. Just open the app, type in the Team 980, hit subscribe. Kevin Sheehan is live every day from 10 to 1. You can catch Denton's office throughout all football season. Don't forget to hit the like button whenever you do decide to join us, and turn on notifications to stay up to date on all things DC sports. And that is what's trending.
It's the Kevin Sheehan Show. Denton Day sitting in for Kevin here on the Team 980. I have a few plays for tonight. College football week 1 starts. We got a ranked game at 5:30 p.m. What is it, Christmas? I mean, this is fantastic.
So excited, bro.
You get Boise State and South Florida. I do have a play in that one that I will share with you in a moment. We can't go through this entire show without sharing this one particular piece of audio. I was very intrigued with how Josh Harris was going to be involved, how much or how little in the Terry McLaurin negotiating. There was a point, I'm not afraid to admit this, there was a point after the Cincinnati game where there seemingly was no movement on the contract, and I was like, does Josh Harris need to step in here? Like, I kind of want Terry. I'd like him to play for the team. Like, what's going on here? Here's Adam Peters on how Josh Harris was involved in this process.
You know, he's got a lot of experience of doing deals like these, not necessarily in the NFL, but in NBA mostly. And so it's cool. We get to talk through it, and you know, the contracts here are so much different than in the NBA. So he's learning a lot as we go and understanding how these things work. So we keep him in the loop step by step about, you know, our conversations we have with agents and players and what we're going to offer them and what we get offered back and all those things. So he's learning. He's always trying to learn about things. He's really, really smart, but he's always still trying to learn more. And so keeping him in the loop on all that, but we had his full support the whole time, which was really cool. You know, even though he wants to know what's going on, he's backed us the whole way. And, you know, in the end, he leaves every decision up to us, which is really cool.
So this is what that's supposed to feel like.
Isn't it crazy?
A competent owner, not getting too much in the way, just wants to kind of know. I can't blame him if you're going to sign a guy to a contract potentially worth $96 million. I would like to know just, you know, kind of how this money, how we reached the conclusion. So I don't mind that at all. But it is so nice that Josh Harris is not coming in there, putting his stick on the table and being like, you're going to do exactly what I say. I am the owner. I am in control. After 30 years of being trapped by that feeling, it feels amazing to be on the other side. And remember last year when they did the draft thing on Command Log, and people were losing their mind because why is Josh Harris in the war room? He's just hanging out with Adam Peters and with Dan Quinn. Why is he around? Is this Dan Snyder 2.0? He's just a curious fella. He's just a little curious dude, wants to understand how these sorts of things work. And it seems like that's exactly what his play was here. That's kind of why you saw the video of Terry hugging Josh Harris. Josh Harris is just kind of like, hey, y'all football people, do the football. I will be the one that signs the check, or my conglomerate of friends will be the ones that ultimately sign the check here. But I hired you to do the job. I'm going to let you do the job. It's a very nice feeling. Also, why would a boss hire somebody to do a job and then want to do that person's job for them? That to me has never made any sense in any capacity, whether it's football, day-to-day life. Why hire me to do a job and then not let me do the job because you want to do it? It doesn't make sense. Dan Snyder did that a ton. Josh Harris ain't doing that. So I liked that answer a lot from Adam Peters. Again, it was one of those things that kind of flew under the radar a little bit, but just kind of understanding that he's not this power-hungry giant in the room of like, you have to do exactly what I say. And that there seemingly was never a point where he was going to do that either, even if this got into the season, which it thankfully did not. I was pleased with that. All right, let's talk some college football. Should we talk some college football, Max?
Let's hit it.
Let's hit some college football. So we got a lot of games on tonight. I will be on Sirius XM for those that are interested, wrapping all of these games up after. I think I'm on at either 11 or 12 tonight. It depends on who is on our airwaves.
You better get that nap in, brother.
I need to get that nap. I got to wake up at 4 a.m. tomorrow too, whatever.
Oh.
All right, so the first game is Boise State and South Florida. This is a top 25 Boise State team. Boise State is now without Ashton Genty. Obviously, he's in the NFL. I love Max. South Florida covering the 5.5 tonight.
Really?
You look at the way that the numbers are laid out. This is a very short number for a team in Boise State that is coming in off of the college football playoff, but with expectations, right? Here's the thing. Most people maybe not know this about South Florida. South Florida also has expectations to potentially get to the college football as the Group of 5 representative. There's a number of schools that have legitimate chances to do so. Boise State is one of them. Locally, James Madison is one of them. Locally, Liberty is one of them. Not locally, South Florida is one of them. So this South Florida team does pose a legitimate threat to Boise State. The only difference is they don't have a number next to their name. So with this being a 5.5-point line on the road, I happen to lean, just generally speaking, in the direction of South Florida. And then I see where the money is being distributed. 75% of the spread bets, this according to BetMGM, are on Boise State. 75% on what I think is a little bit of a closer matchup. So 75% are going one way. I'm going to take South Florida to cover the 5.5 and just hope that that number does not adjust massively prior to kickoff, unless it goes down, and then I know that I'm on the right side there. So I'm taking South Florida tonight against Boise State. There are a couple of other games here that I at the very least find interesting and are debating whether or not I want to gamble on. East Carolina and NC State is one that I've been wrestling with for the entire day up to this point, Max. On one side, you have NC State, that is a ACC team. They're in that conference. Not very good, but they're in that conference. On the other side, you get East Carolina, which is like this fun, spunky team, it feels like. There are years where they're like really good and really good for them, 8 wins, 9 wins, what have you. There's years where they're really good, and then there are years where they're just absolute hot garbage. But on top of that, this is a rivalry game. It doesn't feel like a rivalry game to us because we're not in Carolina, but this is a rivalry game, and a 14-point line in a rivalry game is a very, very large line, especially when you consider I don't really like NC State that much. 50%. It's a 50-50 split on the spread. What am I supposed to do with that?
We're looking at different sites.
What site are you looking at? BetMGM has it 50-50. We don't have a sportsbook sponsor. I did ask our boss before then. I was like, what am I allowed to use here? And he said, we're not sponsored. We don't have an official sponsor, which is really a shame on them, but go ahead.
Sportsbettingdime.com currently has, it shows lines from all the sports books, but right now I see ECU plus 14.5. That's the best line you're going to get, with 75% of the bets on ECU and 73% of the money on ECU.
Damn, that's drastically different from what BetMGM is saying. Drastically different. So that's going to be something that I'm now staying away from.
Okay.
If it's that drastic, I'm not going to play that one. The other game that I'm looking at, and we might have to bring, if he is okay with it, I might need Big Ten Ant to get in front of a microphone.
Okay.
I don't know if he can. I don't think he can hear me right now. I need Big Ten Ant on a microphone to talk a little bit of Nebraska. Anthony McBarnett, who produces the Chris Russell Show, also produces on SiriusXM and does Big Ten Radio. So he is officially going to be known, at least for the next 4 minutes, to be the Big Ten insider here on the program. I love Nebraska this year, Max. I have a Nebraska 7-1. It's now 5-1, but I have them 7-1 to make the college football playoff. I think that schedule is particularly easy, and year number 3 for Matt Rule's a big jump. Big Ten Ant, do you like Nebraska to cover 6.5 against Cincinnati tonight?
Yeah, I think that's a great ability. Like, I think they have a great ability to do that, especially like all the word going into that game. It's in Kansas City. It's going to be a Nebraska home game.
God, those Nebraska fans there might be more Nebraska fans than Chiefs fans there when the Chiefs start playing.
We were talking about it earlier today, and they said that there may be 50,000 Nebraska fans at this Kansas City Chiefs game.
That's insane.
At Arrowhead. So,
I
think with that and then all of the pressure going into it, Matt Rule has, he's progressed over the years and turned that team around a bit. So I think they can easily cover that 6.5.
So 6.5 is where I might be leaning with Nebraska, just because I feel like they're a far better team than Cincinnati. Cincinnati's picked to finish pretty low in the Big 12, whereas Nebraska's at the very least middle of the pack, but I feel good about them finishing top of the pack in the Big 10. So the two official plays that I'm going to have today, Max, I'm taking South Florida against BYU to cover that 5.5, and I'm taking Nebraska to lay 6.5 tonight against Cincinnati. It'll be interesting, though. Are Swifties now Cincinnati fans? Because Travis went to Cincinnati. If I was Cincinnati, I would be leaning into that like crazy. Like, hey, our guy is now about to marry Taylor Swift. Like, you guys should all be Cincinnati fans. So I'm going to take Nebraska to cover the 6.5. As always, if these hit, thank me on Twitter. If they don't, Tweet at Max.
Does this information that I'm about to drop on you that Big Ten Ant just dropped on me, is this going to change your bet at all?
I need to know the information first.
That's true. The Kelseys may be in attendance.
I think I knew that. I think Mahomes might be there too.
Oh.
Yeah. I don't
Him
know.
and Raiola cheesing it up.
I don't know that. God, that relationship is so odd.
It's
to me.
weird.
It's so odd. I don't know that T Swift will be there, but I know that Travis is going to be there, and I had a pretty good inkling that Mahomes was going to be there as well. So those are 2 picks. South Florida 5.5, Nebraska laying 6.5, and then we'll do this again tomorrow. By the way, we got Evan Washburn coming up on the show tomorrow. Just texted him. He said he's good to go. He'll join us, talk a little bit about his interview with Jane Daniels, Ben Standig as well. We'll add a couple more to the docket, but coming up next on the Team 980 is Chris Russell. See ya.